From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, 1000 yuan at a time. In Yangcheng, the weather in July is like a baby's face, changing in an instant. It was scorching hot just now, but now it is raining continuously. Su Weifeng stood under a building to avoid the rain and answered the phone that kept ringing. "Boss, when are you coming back? I can't sleep without you." A delicate female voice came from the phone. Su Weifeng shivered and said with a dark face, "Speak to me nicely. This voice gives me goosebumps all over my body. I really miss you." The other end said in a coquettish voice, and then giggled. The female voice became cheerful and said, "To be honest, can you really adapt to that kind of life? How boring it would be. Listen, it's so lively and fun here." Gunshots came from the phone. How familiar this sound is. In the past 5 years, this sound has accompanied him to sleep almost all day. Su Weifeng felt that he was much more energetic all of a sudden, but he immediately shook his head and said, "Forget it, I'd better take a rest. I have to honor my parents." "Well, say hello to uncle and aunt for us. When we have time, we will go to see them." "What are you doing now?" "I'm waiting for someone." "The blind date." "What?" The voice in the phone suddenly rose 8 degrees and then said angrily, "Seeing a partner? Boss, you have fallen to this point." "No, I want to go back. I want to be your wife." "Get lost. I don't want to get married so early, but my parents are anxious and I have to deal with it." Okay, the person is here. Let's talk later." After saying that, Su Weifeng hung up the phone directly, otherwise Qiao Yushan would definitely keep nagging him. The rain came quickly and went quickly. The rain stopped while he was on the phone. Su Weifeng looked at the time. The scheduled time had arrived, and the girl who was on a blind date with him should have arrived. Tap tap. With the rapid and rhythmic sound of high-heeled shoes hitting the ground, a tall woman, about 24 or 25 years old, walked towards him. She was wearing a small white shirt with a slightly open collar, revealing a small part of her slender neck. A thin necklace with a ruby fan pendant under it complemented her neck. A pair of black pencil pants and a pair of black high-heeled shoes set off her straight long legs. Coupled with that beautiful face, the whole person looks smart and capable, with a strong aura. Although Su Weifeng was well informed, he couldn't help but secretly praise her in his heart. This was definitely a rare beauty. If this woman was the object of his blind date, he really didn't mind trying to get along with her. "Mom, I know, I really have a boyfriend, so you don't have to worry about this anymore, okay?" The woman walked towards Su Weifeng while talking on the phone, with a deep sense of helplessness on her face. "Really, how could I lie to you? I really have one. When I'm done with my work in a few days, I'll bring him back to see you. You really don't need to introduce him to me. I'm very busy here." The woman had already walked in front of Su Weifeng, glanced at Su Weifeng, suddenly stopped, and then covered the microphone with her mobile phone, and said directly to Su Weifeng, "I'll give you 1000 yuan, pretend to be my boyfriend." Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, then grinned and nodded. "Okay, he's right next to me. I'll let him say something to you. Dear, come and say hello to my mother." The woman put the phone to Su Weifeng's ear and gave Su Weifeng a warning look. "Hello, auntie, I'm Su Weifeng." Su Weifeng said politely. The woman immediately took the phone back and said, "Okay, now you heard it? What? You will arrive at the station in half an hour." The latter words, the woman almost shouted. The expression on her face suddenly became extremely terrified. "Okay, I'll pick you up. I'll pick you up." Su Weifeng had been looking at her silently, feeling very amused. This woman was obviously the same as himself, forced to marry by her parents, but she wanted to find him to appease her parents, but she didn't expect to shoot herself in the foot, and her parents came to kill her. Qiao Yushan put down the phone, frowned, and turned her eyes to Su Weifeng, and saw his teasing smile. Her face became even uglier, and she said in a cold voice, "I'll transfer money to you." "No, it's just a small favor." Su Weifeng grinned, then waved his hand, and walked straight forward. "Wait." A woman's voice suddenly came from behind. Su Weifeng stopped and turned around, looking at the woman. Qiao Yushan stood in front of Su Weifeng, hesitated for a moment, then coughed lightly and said, "Excuse me, do you have a girlfriend now?" "No, what are you doing?" Su Weifeng looked at the woman in confusion. Judging from her dress and temperament, this woman should be a successful white-collar worker. She shouldn't fall in love with him at first sight, right? Qiao Yushan coughed lightly again, and then said, "Please don't get me wrong. I have something I want to ask you for help. Of course, the reward is indispensable. I want you to pretend to be my boyfriend for a while, to deal with my parents. You should find someone you are familiar with. You and I are completely strangers, and it's easy to be exposed." Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, "My parents can easily grasp the situation with someone I'm familiar with, so it's easier to be exposed. Then this matter is really difficult. 10,000 yuan. My parents will probably only live here for a week at most. In this week, you just need to show up a few times. How about it?" Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng with burning eyes. Su Weifeng shook his head. Qiao Yushan frowned and said, 20,000. Su Weifeng shook his head again and said, "I don't need money." "Then you." Qiao Yushan's face suddenly turned cold, and she said, "You still want to do this to me?" Su Weifeng rolled his eyes and said, "Although you are very beautiful, I don't bother to threaten you when you are in trouble, right? Then, what are your conditions?" Qiao Yushan's expression eased, but she was still quite alert. "It's very simple. I'm in the same boat with you now. I pretend to be your boyfriend, to deal with your parents, and you have to pretend to be my girlfriend, to deal with my parents. That's impossible." Qiao Yushan refused without thinking. "Forget it if it doesn't work. Goodbye." Su Weifeng smiled and waved his hand, and walked directly past Qiao Yushan. A faint fragrance floated to his nose. Just after taking 2 steps, the woman's voice came from behind. "Okay, I promise you." Chapter 2, A Prominent Family. Qiao Yushan was really screwed by her parents this time. She just wanted this man to help her out. Who would have thought that her parents would come to Fengcheng, and they would arrive in half an hour? This lie was told, and it could not be taken back. She could only continue to lie. If she said that she lied, she would definitely be greeted by her father's anger and her mother's nagging. Just thinking about it would make people collapse. Finding a man to pretend to be a boyfriend does require careful consideration, but Su Weifeng has 2 reasons that made her choose this man. The first is that this man does not love money, or this man is very rich, and the other is that this man's character is noble enough, which is acceptable to her. The second point is that Su Weifeng's eyes look at her. Although there is a kind of lust, it is more of an appreciation, not the kind of possession and desire. Of course, the most important point is that there is only more than half an hour left. Where can she find a more suitable one? My name is Su Weifeng. I'm 26 years old this year. I joined the army at the age of 18 and retired this year. I'm currently unemployed. My father, Su Qiango, is 54 years old, and my mother, Shenji, is 53 years old. They are both ordinary employees of state-owned enterprises. Remember these, so as not to be exposed in front of my parents. As soon as he got into Qiao Yushan's Mercedes-Benz, Su Weifeng said this with a serious face. Qiao Yushan was stunned. Shouldn't she say this first? Why does it feel like this guy's more eager than herself to find a woman, to pretend to be his girlfriend? Well, I remember it. My name is Qiao Yushan. I'm 25 years old this year. I'm the president of Linfeng Company. My father, Qiao Yuanheng, is 55 years old this year. My mother, Song Yuru, is 47 years old this year. My father is in the army with the rank of colonel. My mother is a civil servant and the director of the district finance bureau. Great, great, you have a prominent family background. Su Weifeng gave Qiao Yushan a thumbs up, then nodded and said, with your conditions and your looks, my parents will definitely be very satisfied. Qiao Yushan's mouth twitched. How could she be satisfied? I'm not your real girlfriend, she said. Then my parents will definitely not be satisfied with your conditions. This must be adjusted. How to adjust? Qiao Yushan thought for a while and said, your parents' family conditions don't need to be changed. My parents don't pay much attention to this, but personal ability is the most important. You can't say that you don't have a job. From now on, you are the Deputy General Manager of Pingyang Company. Now you go and look up the information of Pingyang Company, and then remember it. Oh my god, you just pretend to be the Deputy General Manager of a company. Isn't it easy to be exposed? Pingyang Company is a partner of our company. I can say hello to their boss, but I won't show it. As a manager, in addition to understanding the company's operating conditions, you must also behave like a manager in your conversation. Qiao Yushan turned her head and glanced at Su Weifeng, saying, "You'd better not be so frivolous. My father is very old-fashioned and hates young people who are frivolous the most. Maybe I'm an exception." Su Weifeng put his hands behind his head, saw Qiao Yushan's tense face, shrugged his shoulders, and said, "You talk, I'm listening." It took only about 20 minutes from getting on the bus to the station. Qiao Yushan basically gave Su Weifeng instructions all the way. I don't know how much this guy can remember. After parking the car, Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan walked towards the exit together. Su Weifeng turned his head and looked at Qiao Yushan with a smile, saying, "Did you forget something?" "Forgot what?" Qiao Yushan turned her head and looked at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng pointed at Qiao Yushan, then at himself, and said, "Do you think a couple would walk so far apart?" Qiao Yushan frowned and walked to Su Weifeng's side. Su Weifeng shook his head gently and said, "You have never been in love before. What's wrong? What's wrong?" Qiao Yushan's brows were already twisted into a knot. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes at Qiao Yushan and said, "Even if you don't hold my arm, you don't have to make the expression on your face so bitter and resentful. You should have a sweet smile. If you keep doing this, it will definitely be exposed in front of my parents. It's better for us to break up this cooperation." Qiao Yushan stared at Su Weifeng with anger in her eyes and said, "You want to take advantage of me?" Su Weifeng chuckled, without explaining, and just looked at Qiao Yushan with a smile. Qiao Yushan made Su Weifeng laugh so hard that he was embarrassed. She took a deep breath and said, "I will do it when I see my parents. It's up to you. I'm just reminding you." Su Weifeng shrugged and walked forward. Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng from behind. She felt something was wrong. Even if Su Weifeng was talking to her about cooperation, she should be the one taking the lead in this matter. Why did she feel that the other party was the one taking the lead now? She was the president of a company with assets of over 100 million yuan and more than 300 employees. Now she was being led by a man who didn't even have a job. It was really a bit puzzling. Before she had the chance to think too much, she saw her parents coming out of the exit. She suddenly became nervous and quickly caught up with Su Weifeng, whispering in his ear, "My parents are out. As long as you perform well, I will definitely reward you." Su Weifeng grinned at her and said, "No need for a big reward. I just want you to remember that my performance will be your role model in front of my parents in the future." Qiao Yushan met Su Weifeng's eyes and nodded gently. "Okay, Mom and Dad. Why didn't you tell me beforehand when you came here?" Qiao Yushan met a middle-aged couple and took her mother's arm with a complaint. "Huh, why did you come here?" Qiao Yushan's mother Song Yuru looked at Su Weifeng while talking. Qiao Yushan smiled awkwardly and said, "Why don't you believe me? Yushan, long time no see." There was a young man following Qiao Yushan's parents. At this time, he took a step around and smiled brightly at Qiao Yushan. "Zhao Lanking." Qiao Yushan's mouth twitched, and her expression suddenly became a little unnatural. This was interesting. Not only did Qiao Yushan's parents come, they also brought their future son-in-law with them. It seemed that the task of pretending to be a boyfriend was not so easy to accomplish. Chapter 3. Are you here to help or to sabotage? Zhao Lanking was about 27 or 28 years old, tall and handsome, with decent clothes and elegant demeanor. Standing there, he attracted the attention of many girls passing by. Song Yuru said, "Yushan, Lion King knew we were coming and took a leave to accompany us. He ran around all the way. He is really a good boy." Zhao Lion King immediately said modestly, "Uncle and aunt, these are what Lion King should do. It is my honor to accompany you." Song Yuru smiled and said, "If it weren't for Lion King talking to me, I would have been bored to death with this old man, who is as taciturn as a gourd." Qiao Yushan knew what her parents meant. Zhao Lanking was promoted by her father and was very much liked by her father. 2 years ago, he wanted the two of them to fall in love, and Xiao Lianqing was also very concerned about her. It is undeniable that Xiao Lianqing's conditions are indeed good. He is only 28 years old this year. After graduating from the military academy, he went directly to the army. Before he was demobilized, he was already a major level battalion cadre. After returning to the local area, he went directly to a government department as a section chief. He is indeed quite promising. But Qiao Yushan didn't want to fall in love so early. The most important point was that she really had no feelings for Xiao Lianqing. Who would have thought that her parents would bring Xiao Lianqing here directly this time? It was obvious that they wanted to force her to fall in love. Fortunately, she found a fake boyfriend like Su Weifeng this time, so she had a good excuse. But she glanced at Su Weifeng. This guy looked a little lazy. Could he really get the approval of his parents and help her through this difficult time? She really had no confidence. Mom and dad, let me introduce you. Qiao Yushan changed the subject and said, this is Su Weifeng, my boyfriend. Su Weifeng hurriedly stepped forward and greeted them politely. Hello, uncle and aunt. Qiao Yushan's parents seemed to have just seen Su Weifeng. Qiao Yushan's eyes were sharp, and Song Yuru looked at Su Weifeng again, nodded, and said, I'm a little uncomfortable with this sudden appearance of a boyfriend. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, I've heard Yushan talk about uncle and aunt for a long time, and I've also seen their photos, but when I really saw them, I found that uncle has an extraordinary demeanor and really has the style of a general. Aunt is noble and generous, and looks really young. When I see them alone, I really can't imagine that you are Yushan's mother. HMPH, you're so smooth talking. Qiao Yushan's father snorted, with dissatisfaction on his face. Oh my god. This is flattery that hits the horse's leg. Su Weifeng was a little amused. Xiao Lianqing seemed to speak like this, but they didn't care. If he said this, it would be glib. It was really treated differently. However, Su Weifeng was also a man who had seen many storms. At this time, he still said calmly, Uncle is teaching me that I have prepared this sentence for a long time, and I feel awkward saying it myself. Qiao Yushan's face suddenly darkened. How can you say that? If you deny it now, it will be even worse. Sure enough, Song Yuru's face suddenly became ugly, and she said, so what you mean is, what you said just now is all false. Qiao Yushan's face darkened even more, and Xiao Lianqing's expression didn't seem to change that much, but there was a hint of disdain in his eyes. Su Weifeng scratched his head and said, of course it's not fake. I'm not trying to leave a good impression on my uncle and aunt, but it seems really awkward to talk like this. Even if my uncle and aunt don't like me, I don't want to pretend to be so polite. I just feel that my uncle is domineering, and Yushan is really like an aunt. Song Yuru's brows did not open, but Qiao Yushan's eyes, when he looked at Su Weifeng, eased a little. Qiao Yushan felt that the atmosphere was really not good, and hurriedly said, Mom and Dad, it's too hot here. Let's get in the car and go home to talk. In the car, Qiao Yushan seemed to talk a lot, such as how her grandparents were and how her cousins were. She would never talk about these things at ordinary times, but now she can try to let her parents communicate less with Su Weifeng, so she said less. Half an hour later, everyone had arrived at Qiao Yushan's home. The house where Qiao Yushan lived was about 100 square meters, with 2 bedrooms and a fairly spacious living room. The layout was simple, but it was somewhat messy. A career-oriented strong woman was obviously not very strong in these things. Fortunately, there was nothing messy or embarrassing in the living room. Everyone sat on the sofa in the living room. Song Yuru winked at Xiao Lianqing and then pulled Qiao Yushan to talk casually. She didn't ask Su Weifeng, nor did she want Qiao Yushan to spoil it. Xiao Lianqing coughed lightly and said to Su Weifeng, Brother Su, Yushan and I have known each other for many years and have always liked her. I didn't expect that she suddenly had a boyfriend. This surprised me, but don't worry, I'm not the kind of petty person. If Yushan can really find someone who can make her happy, I will also bless her. Song Yuru and Qiao Yushan both nodded secretly. Xiao Lianqing's demeanor was one of the main reasons why they liked him. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, I admire your mind. I don't have the same idea as you. I like Yushan, so I will do my best to get her. I don't believe that others like her more than me, otherwise she won't be with me. Zhao Lanking frowned and said, shouldn't loving someone make her happier? Isn't it a bit selfish for you to think like this? Su Weifeng nodded seriously and said, love is selfish. When I fell in love with Yushan, my heart could no longer accommodate other people, let alone her being with others. You are so open-minded. I can only say that you don't really love Yushan that much. Zhao Lanking opened his mouth, then shook his head and smiled, saying, maybe you are right. Loving someone is not something that can only be said with words. It requires ability. I wonder where Brother Su is now? Su Weifeng said naturally, I have just returned from retirement and have not yet decided what to do. Qiao Yushan was very satisfied with what Su Weifeng said just now. At least he behaved manly enough. But when she heard what Su Weifeng said, her face suddenly darkened. Didn't we agree that you were a general manager? Why did you change now? Even if you have changed, you should say something reliable. If you haven't considered a career change, then you are unemployed now. Can you say anything worse? Are you here to help or to cause trouble? Chapter 4. Somewhat outrageous. As expected, the expressions of Qiao Yuanzheng and Song Yuru turned ugly. Song Yuru even glared at Qiao Yushan. Qiao Yushan wanted to explain, but when she opened her mouth, she didn't know where to start. Zhao Lanking shook his head and said, Brother Su, you surprised me a little. I know Yushan very well. She has outstanding personal abilities and a strong personality. She is also very picky when it comes to finding a boyfriend. You. Su Weifeng smiled and said, Brother Zhao, what you mean is, I'm very bad. Zhao Lanking smiled helplessly and said, do you really have to make me say it clearly? I'm not showing off to you. I just retired from the army last year. When I retired, I was a major and a battalion level cadre. Now I'm the section chief of the Environmental Protection Bureau. You are a few years younger than me. Your rank is definitely not as high as mine. Naturally, your development after retirement will not be better than mine. Yushan has never liked me, so with your conditions, how could she like you? When Zhao Lanking said these words, there was a playful look in his eyes. He now doubted that Su Weifeng was pulled in by Qiao Yushan to impersonate. Otherwise how could Qiao Yushan possibly like Su Weifeng? Su Weifeng looked a little strange and said, Major, battalion level. Zhao Lanking shook his head and sighed. In fact, if I had continued to develop in the army, I would have been promoted to lieutenant colonel in a few years. It was just because of some family reasons that I transferred to the local area, but I believe that with my efforts, my career development will definitely not be worse than in the army. He seemed a little annoyed at the beginning, but then he straightened his chest and showed a strong self-confidence. At his age, he was able to develop to this point, which was indeed quite outstanding. Su Weifeng rubbed his nose at this time, laughed, and said, it seems really good. But everyone felt from Su Weifeng's attitude that he was not very sincere and seemed to look down on Zhao Lanking's position. Qiao Yuanzheng snorted, and Zhao Lanking also frowned and said, Brother Su, you don't seem to think highly of a major. I wonder what position you will be in when you retire. Su Weifeng laughed and said, forget it, I won't tell you about mine. Qiao Yushan also interrupted and said, Mom, I'll take you shopping or to see the scenery here later. Zhao Lanking narrowed his eyes and said in a teasing tone, Brother Su, we are all soldiers. There is nothing wrong with talking about this. Which unit did you serve in before? I had many classmates in the military academy, and later I participated in several studies. I know a lot of cadres of the same level in various military regions. Maybe I even know your boss. Su Weifeng laughed again and said, I guess you don't know my boss. Zhao Lanking patted Su Weifeng on the shoulder and said, tell me about it. There is nothing wrong with talking about it. I might really know him. Su Weifeng looked a little embarrassed. Qiao Yushan secretly complained to Zhao Lanking in her heart, why are you so aggressive? If you make Su Weifeng look bad, then she will also look bad. Looking at Su Weifeng hesitating, Qiao Yuanzheng slapped the armrest of the sofa and said in a deep voice, it is an honor for a man to serve in the army to defend his country. Even if you are a soldier, you should not have any inferiority complex. Su Weifeng said helplessly, well, I was a colonel when I retired. Zhao Lianking's eyes showed a hint of surprise and said, "You are actually a captain, which is also a company level cadre. It's very good. Have you also attended military school?" "No, I was conscripted into the army." Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng again and said, "It's really not easy for you to reach this level in the army at your age, but you have to be careful when you speak. There is a huge difference between a lieutenant and a colonel. You must not say the wrong thing." Qiao Yushan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although her father's words were reproachful, his attitude towards Su Weifeng had obviously eased. Su Weifeng rubbed his nose, coughed lightly, and said, "I was not wrong. I clearly heard you say colonel just now." Qiao Yushan paused here, and his face suddenly turned dark. Zhao Lianking showed a funny expression on his face and said, "Brother Su, do you mean that you are a colonel, not a captain?" Qiao Yushan quickly winked at Su Weifeng, thinking to herself, "Don't brag, Dad can confirm the truth with a phone call." But Su Weifeng nodded with a smile, as if he didn't see Qiao Yushan's gaze, and said, "Yes." Zhao Lianking chuckled and said, "Brother Su, your joke is really a bit funny. Are you really a retired soldier from the army? If you are a retired soldier, you shouldn't say such funny things, right? Do you really think a 25 or 26-year-old soldier can get the rank of colonel?" Qiao Yushan sneered and said, "What nonsense." Song Yuru also shook her head and said to Qiao Yushan in a reproachful voice, "How can I feel at ease with you, kid?" Qiao Yushan was also very upset. Su Weifeng, this bastard, even if he was bragging, couldn't he have informed her in advance? He actually boasted about his military rank, which was courting death. Her father was from the army and was a colonel. How could he not understand these things? Now her mother had to accuse her of not being able to judge people well. In the future, she would have even more reason to interfere in her love life. Su Weifeng really ruined her. Zhao Lianking hurriedly said, "Auntie, I think Yushan didn't misjudge people well, but the person she hired was unreliable, right?" Song Yuru said in confusion, "What do you mean?" Zhao Lianking laughed and said, "I said that this brother Su should have been hired by Yushan to pretend to be her boyfriend. Yushan, don't blame me for exposing you. It's just that the person you hired. I really couldn't help it." Qiao Yushan smiled bitterly. Can she still deny it now? But just when she was about to admit it, Su Weifeng said with a puzzled expression on his face, I'm telling the truth. Isn't it just a colonel? It doesn't seem to be that great, right?" The eyes of several people in the room all turned to Su Weifeng. Qiao Yushan and Song Yuru were angry, and Qiao Yushan was a little speechless. "This has been seen through. What are you still acting? In addition, you are bragging so much. The rank of colonel is already very powerful in the army. At the very least, it is a regiment commander. You actually said that there is nothing great. Even if Qiao Yushan has been in the army for 30 years, he is only a major general." Chapter 5 It's actually true. Su Weifeng is not bragging. Long Zhao. That is the most mysterious and powerful special forces in the whole country. Any member of it is the top elite in the army, who has passed layers of selection. The missions they carry out are the most important and dangerous, and they may lose their lives at any time. Therefore, everyone in Long Zhao is given the best treatment, especially in terms of rank. The captain Su Weifeng is directly a major general, and the lowest among the members are colonels. Because of the mystery and specialness of Long Zhao, when he left Long Zhao, he retired with the place of origin of other troops, and was only a colonel to the outside world. After being in Long Zhao team for a long time, Su Weifeng really didn't have a strong concept of rank. No matter what rank, they were all comrades who had been through life and death together, and they were all brothers. Even if he was a major general, he didn't have any sense of superiority. So as a colonel, he really didn't show any sense of superiority, and he didn't have any intention of pretending to be cool. He really felt it was very ordinary. Asshole. With a muffled sound, Qiao Yushan slapped the armrest of the sofa and stood up. His face was already as hen. "Dad." Qiao Yushan's face turned pale. Although her father doted on her, it did not mean that he would be good-tempered towards other people. As a soldier, he not only had a bad temper, but also adhered to principles. Su Weifeng's attitude really annoyed his father. Qiao Yushan stepped directly in front of Su Weifeng and shouted, "Boy, you really dare to talk nonsense, and you are still a colonel. I will beat you to death." Su Weifeng stood up suddenly, and the heels of his shoes touched each other, making a light sound. Then he straightened his chest and saluted in a standard military salute, saying loudly, "Report to the commander, Su Weifeng, a member of the Storm Squad of the Northern Military Region, reports to you." Out of the instinct of a soldier, Qiao Yushan rushed over and immediately returned the military salute, then stared at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng straightened his chest, looked directly at Qiao Yushan, and said loudly, "Please give instructions, Commander. Northern Military Region. Storm Squad." Zhao Lanking exclaimed. "What happened to the Storm Squad?" Song Yuru asked in confusion. Zhao Lanking looked at Su Weifeng again and said, "The Storm Squad is the most powerful special forces in the Northern Military Region. It is full of elites in the army. People in the entire Northern Military Region are proud to join the Storm Squad. But what?" Qiao Yushan asked immediately. She was not concerned about whether the impersonation would be recognized, but was attracted by this topic. Zhao Lanking said, "But I heard that after the members of the Storm Squad entered, very few of them changed jobs. Even if they were not in the Storm Squad, they would work in other departments." Qiao Yushan said in a deep voice, "Boy, do you know what you said means?" Su Weifeng said loudly, "The identity of a soldier cannot be violated in any way." Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng again. From him, he felt the integrity and bloodiness of a soldier. In addition, he also felt a kind of restrained murderous aura. This murderous aura is definitely something that only people who have really been on the battlefield can have. Only soldiers like him who have been in the army for many years and have seen many battlefields can see it. "Sit down." Qiao Yushan nodded, and his tone suddenly softened. Qiao Yushan was stunned for a moment, and then she was overjoyed. Her father's attitude showed that he believed Su Weifeng's words. This was really unexpected. She was about to give up and tell the truth, but now her father believed her. If he didn't say he was optimistic, it could at least be regarded as a recognition. You know, in this family, the one who really has the final say is the father. If the father is not satisfied, then it is absolutely impossible to continue. In this situation, it is obvious that this matter can continue. Zhao Lanking frowned and said, "Although the rank of the Storm Squad is high, as far as I know, the captain may only be at the level of colonel. Could it be that Brother Su is the captain of the Storm Squad?" There was a kind of ridicule in his words. If he really became the captain of the Storm Squad, how could he change his career at such a young age? "I'm just the deputy," Su Weifeng said casually. "Just a deputy?" Zhao Lanking's eyes widened, and then his face was angry, and he said, "Don't think that people in the special forces can keep it completely secret. Uncle can confirm your identity with just one phone call." Su Weifeng said, "It's good to confirm it. At least it can prove that I'm honest and trustworthy as a soldier." When saying this, Su Weifeng also glanced at Qiao Yushan. Qiao Yushan immediately understood what he meant, glared at him, nodded again, and told Su Weifeng that she would definitely do what she promised. This was a bit direct. Song Yuru was a little embarrassed, but still said, "Old Qiao, then you can make a call. I'm really curious, how can someone like Xiao Su at this age achieve this level?" Qiao Yushan nodded. Although he now believed in Su Weifeng, he also felt a little puzzled. With Qiao Yushan's level, it was not difficult to verify such things. Soon, a phone call confirmed Su Weifeng's level and identity. However, other situations involved some confidential information, and even Qiao Yushan was not qualified to inquire about them. "He's actually a colonel?" Song Yuru smiled, and then said to Su Weifeng, "Xiao Su, don't blame your uncle and aunt for being vigilant. There are many scammers pretending to be soldiers in society now. In addition, the level you mentioned is too unbelievable. We are suspicious. I hope you can understand." Su Weifeng immediately showed a bright smile and said, "Aunt, this is normal. I didn't want to say the level at first, because I didn't want everyone to suspect. Your starting point is to protect Yushan." Song Yuru smiled even more and said, "Yes, everyone is for Yushan's good. You are really good. Look at your uncle. He has been working for most of his life, but he is still a colonel. You are so young, but you are a colonel." Qiao Yushan's face darkened. Why did this sound awkward? "I'm a colonel, but you still look down on me?" I was quite satisfied with Su Weifeng, but now I'm suddenly a little dissatisfied. You are so strong. How can I put on airs in front of you when I become your father-in-law in the future? But Zhao Lanqing was extremely depressed at this time. He always thought that he was very good. He always thought that he was better than Su Weifeng, and he always thought that Qiao Yushan would not be snatched away. Now he had a strong sense of crisis. Chapter 6. I don't believe in you. Brother Su, since you have such a high position in the army, the work after demobilization must be well arranged, right? Zhao Lanqing wanted to get back at him. The level in the army was in the past. After demobilization to the local area, the development would be different. Qiao Yushan immediately coughed lightly to remind Su Weifeng that it was time to talk according to what had been discussed in advance. Su Weifeng made her speechless again. At this time, he said, I have only been demobilized for more than a month. I have not yet determined my future plans. I want to think about it carefully before making a decision. Song Yuru's eyes lit up and said, then you'd better go to the government department. With your level and your age, it is easy to get the recognition of the leaders. As long as you have some ability, it should not be difficult to transfer to a real job level. Zhao Lanqing said, Auntie, this ability is important, but you also need connections and leaders who appreciate him. This is really not just a personal issue. Brother Su, do you have such connections and background? I really don't have this. Su Weifeng shook his head. Zhao Lanqing straightened his back and said, then it will not be easy for you to develop. Even if you start at a high level, it is not easy to get a real job. Moreover, it is not easy for you to get promoted in the local area. I feel sorry for you. You should develop in the army and should not transfer to civilian work. The implication is that my future development will be better than yours. Su Weifeng. Song Yuru worked in a government department and agreed with it. Looking at Zhao Lanqing and Su Weifeng, she was more inclined to let Zhao Lanqing and Qiao Yushan be together. After all, she could roughly infer Zhao Lanqing's future development, and Zhao Lanqing's performance had always made her very satisfied. Mom and Dad, Weifeng has something to do today, let him go first. Qiao Yushan felt that the current situation was already quite good. In order to avoid Su Weifeng doing something unexpected, it would be better to send him away first. Qiao Yuanzheng and Song Yuru just exchanged a few simple polite words, and Su Weifeng got up and left. Qiao Yushan followed him out, and after walking a few steps, she stopped, frowned and said, why didn't you say it as planned today? Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, you want the result, why bother about the process? Do you really think that, if I said it as planned, there would be the current result? Qiao Yushan opened her mouth, as if it was really the case, and shook her head gently, saying, when I go back later, my parents will definitely ask more questions. I will tell you what I told them through WeChat. You must not say anything nonsense this time, otherwise you will be exposed. Even if you have other ideas, you must communicate with me in advance. Su Weifeng nodded and said, okay, let's meet again later. I think I will have to come over twice in the next few days, otherwise I won't be like your boyfriend. Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng with a strange look, and Su Weifeng immediately rolled his eyes and said, don't think that I have any ideas about you. I'm just fulfilling my own promise. In addition, you have to learn well. When you come to my house, I don't want you to ruin my show right away. Humph. I, Qiao Yushan, will do what I say. I hope so. Then I'll leave today. Su Weifeng waved his hand and left in style. After buying a bunch of fruits, Su Weifeng opened the door carefully. Smelly boy, where have you been? As soon as he entered the house, a hand had already twisted his ear accurately, and then a roar came from his ear. Mom. Be gentle, I bought you your favorite grapes. Don't do these useless things to me. You have become capable, but you don't answer my calls and you don't reply to my messages. Have you grown wings, or do you think your mom can't hold a knife and can't cure you? No matter how long I stay in your palm, I can't escape. I went to find a daughter-in-law for you, and I found one. Don't lie to me. You haven't found a daughter-in-law for me for so many years. You found one just now. It's absolutely true. I will bring her back to you in a few days, and I guarantee you will be satisfied with this daughter-in-law. If you dare to lie to me, you're dead. Su Weifeng's ears relaxed, and he stood up straight, holding the fruit in one hand, and hugging his mother's shoulders with the other, and said, "Mom, you really look down on your son. This time I must give you a big surprise." Huh? Surprise? If you really want to surprise me, bring Qiao Yushan back to be my daughter-in-law. Su Weifeng was petrified, staring at his mother Shenji with wide eyes, as if he was looking at a monster. Shenji stared at him and said, "What are you looking at? Humph, do you know who Qiao Yushan is? She is one of the top 10 outstanding young people in our city. She is only 25 years old this year, but she is already the CEO of a company with assets of over 100 million yuan. I have seen her on TV and the internet. She is beautiful and has a great temperament. TSK, if she can become my daughter-in-law, that's what you are capable of. But with your ugly appearance, it would be good if you can talk to her in this life." Su Weifeng realized that his mother was not really a prophet, but just a fan of Qiao Yushan. This was really a big surprise. His mother did not follow those big stars, but actually followed a career-oriented strong woman. Su Weifeng suddenly smiled smugly. Shenji glared again and said, "What are you laughing at? Am I wrong? I tell you, don't look for any crooked melons and bad dates to fool me. Your mother can't tolerate the slightest grain of sand in her eyes." Su Weifeng blinked and said, "Yes, but Mom, what if I really bring Qiao Yushan back to you?" Shenji slapped Su Weifeng on the shoulder and said unhappily, "Get out. You have been out for so many years. You have really learned bad things. Even your mother can't be fooled. If you have the ability, you should fool more girls outside and bring them back to me. PFFT, Mom, I'm telling the truth." Su Weifeng staggered a bit so that he could show his mother's majesty and domineering, and then said with a bitter face, "Get out. I don't believe you." After saying that, his mother directly snatched the fruit from Su Weifeng's hand and went into the kitchen. "Mom, I'm telling you the truth, but you don't believe it." Su Weifeng shook his head and thought to himself, what kind of expression would his mother have if he really brought Qiao Yushan back? Chapter 7 Weird Request. "Sister, I'm so sorry. My son is back home. He was in a hurry to go out, forgot to bring his cell phone, and went to the wrong place." Su Weifeng listened to his mother talking on the phone and couldn't help muttering in his heart, "This is absolutely lying with open eyes. I don't seem to be as capable as my mother. How about this? I've cooked a table of dishes, and our old Su is not at home. You guys come over to have a meal together." Okay, there's nothing else to say between us sisters. Just come over quickly." Su Weifeng's face turned green when she heard this, and she stood up and wanted to run away. "You stay at home honestly." With her or from her mother, Su Weifeng had no choice but to sit back on the sofa. "Mom, I've already told you that I already have a girlfriend. Why do you insist on introducing her to me? Before you brought her back to me, you thought I would believe your lies. Let me tell you, the conditions for this blind date are pretty good. Her parents and we work in the same unit, and we know each other well. There is absolutely no problem with her character, and she's also very beautiful." Su Weifeng said with a bitter face, "She won't be interested in me. Get out." Shenji grabbed Su Weifeng's ear and said, "Just go on a blind date honestly. How do you know you won't be interested? You're not missing any limbs, and you're not bad looking, and our family conditions are acceptable." "Okay, let me see. I think it's not bad." Su Weifeng quickly begged for mercy. With his skills, even if his mother's speed was 10 times faster, he could easily dodge it. After not going home for so many years, it would be very intimate for his mother to pull his ears again. Besides, his mother had been pulling his ears for many years. If he didn't let her pull them, she would definitely feel lost. So as long as his mother wanted to pull them, Su Weifeng would never avoid or hide. Not long after, there was a knock on the door, and Su Weifeng went to open the door. There was a mother and daughter standing at the door. The mother was normal, but the young girl was wearing heavy makeup and her lips were also painted red. At first glance, she seemed to still have a bit of appearance and seemed okay, but after a second look, it made people feel that all her beauty was piled up with those cosmetics. First, she looked Su Weifeng up and down, then curled her lips, and said with her eyes looking up to the sky, "You are the one you want to introduce to me, but you don't seem to be that good. Hello, I'm Su Weifeng." Su Weifeng wanted to shut her out directly, but thinking that she was a colleague of his parents, he could only bite the bullet and say hello. The two walked in directly without changing their shoes. The young woman was wearing a pair of high heels that were more than 10 centimeters high. When she walked, her buttocks were about to fly off. Shenji hurriedly smiled and asked the two to sit down, then winked at Su Weifeng and said, Weifeng, take Liu Jingjing to the room to chat. I will chat with your aunt here for a while. Su Weifeng really wanted to refuse, but he had to bite the bullet, and said to the girl named Liu Jingjing, let's go and chat. Let's chat. Liu Jingjing followed Su Weifeng into his room with a very willing expression. Oh, your room is really small. How can people live here? As soon as she came in, Liu Jingjing looked disgusted. Mother Shenji immediately said outside, when you get married, you must buy a new house. That's about right. Liu Jingjing muttered, looked around, and then sat down on the edge of the bed. Although Su Weifeng only went to high school and then served in the army, he still had some basic cultivation. This Liu Jingjing simply had no manners at all, which made him really want to throw her out. Liu Jingjing crossed her legs and said, let's just talk about it. I'm an internet celebrity with more than 100,000 fans. With my conditions, it's easy to find a rich man, but my mother still wants me to find a stable man to live with. Su Weifeng knew what internet celebrities meant, but 100,000 fans didn't seem to be very good. What's there to be proud of? The most important thing is that this woman must have been talking nonsense. I'm afraid that 10,000 real fans would be about the same. Liu Jingjing said again, your appearance is barely acceptable. I can deal with it, but I still have to make it clear for the other conditions. If you can't meet them, then we don't need to talk. Oh, what do you want? Su Weifeng was a little interested at this time. He really wanted to see what kind of weird requirements this woman could say. First, the house. Your family said they will buy it, but it must be in the city, and it cannot be less than 150 square meters. The property certificate must be in my name. Su Weifeng asked casually, what about the second point? The second point is the car. It must not be less than the BMW 5 Series. Otherwise, I will lose face when I drive it out. My friends are all rich people. The 5 Series is the most ordinary. By the way, the car must also be registered in my name. Su Weifeng has heard that in China, if you want to get married, the man has to prepare a house and a car, but this woman's appetite is really big. What else? Su Weifeng asked with narrowed eyes. Third point. From now on, every festival and holiday must be celebrated at my parents' house, and you can only ask me to go to your parents' house once a year. Su Weifeng frowned and said, are you serious about what you said? Liu Jingjing nodded proudly and said, of course I'm serious, and in the future, you must not give your parents a penny without my permission. Su Weifeng sneered and said, you are really filial to your parents. Liu Jingjing said proudly, that's a must. My parents raised me to this age, and I must be filial to them. Then have you ever thought that I was also born and raised by my parents? Can women and men be the same? Now if a man wants to marry a wife, you have to listen to his wife. The man has to buy the house and car, and pay for the wedding expenses. After the marriage, the man's parents will be kicked out. Liu Jingjing rolled her eyes and said, you don't need to say these words. If you are willing, then you are willing. If you are not willing, then forget it. I didn't ask for so much, because I saw that your parents and my parents are from the same unit. Otherwise, with your ugly appearance, how could you have a chance to date me? Su Weifeng laughed and said, I really can't afford a woman like you. Let's forget about it. Humph, forget it, you poor bastard. Liu Jingjing stood up suddenly, twisted her butt, and pushed the door open again and walked out. What's wrong? Su Weifeng's mother asked hurriedly. Liu Jingjing raised her chin and said, forget it, I don't like your son, mom, let's go. After sending them away, Shenji glared at Su Weifeng again. Su Weifeng roughly explained the situation and said, mom, I can't accept a woman like her, even if she's given to me for free. I absolutely can't accept a woman who doesn't even know how to show filial piety. Shenji's eyes suddenly filled with a satisfied smile and said, good son, I support you this time. Don't even think about entering our house with a woman like her. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Counterfeit. At around 10 p.m., Qiao Yushan sent a WeChat message. We met a month ago. I like your sharp judgment and strong adaptability. You are honest and kind to me. We haven't lived together yet, and we haven't had sex. My mother hopes that you will transfer to a government department. I said that I haven't decided on the future direction with you yet. This is obviously the situation of Qiao Yushan's communication with her parents, but it was really concise, without any unnecessary nonsense. There was also a WeChat transfer message, 5,000 yuan. Take my parents out to see the scenery tomorrow. Su Weifeng clicked to receive directly. He and Qiao Yushan had a deal involving money, so it was a good thing to settle it this way. Then he replied, going out to play is no problem. I'll make arrangements, but you've dug a hole for yourself now. What do you mean? You said I'm good to you. This is troublesome. We are going out to play for a day, and I have to show my kindness to you. So don't you have to accept it happily and also give me something in return? Seeing that you don't have much experience in love, I have two plans here. You choose. You say. The first one is that we act very intimate. This is not just physical contact, but more of an emotional intimacy. That is, intimacy in all aspects such as eye contact and facial expressions, so that people feel that the two of us are already deeply in love and inseparable. This is not only difficult for you, but also for me. But there is one advantage. Your parents will believe that we are very close, and it will also make Qiao Lion King feel a blow, and he may give up his pursuit of you. I can't do this. The second one is that we are the kind of people who respect each other. That is, we are in a state of mutual appreciation now, but this can only prove that there is such a relationship between us in terms of status. Your parents will not care too much. Qiao Lion King will still be very confident, and I can feel that your parents are still more inclined to let you and Qiao Lion King be together. This effect is too weak. How about neutralizing it? You want to be not too intimate, but also make people feel that our relationship has reached a certain level. This is really difficult. Then follow the second plan first, and I will decide based on the situation at that time. Okay, you are indeed worthy of being the boss. He sent a thumbs up emoticon. After this message was sent, there was no movement. Su Weifeng did not care and searched the internet for the place he wanted to go. He had been away from his hometown for 6 or 7 years. In these 6 or 7 years, his hometown has changed so much that, if it were not for the navigation, Su Weifeng would not be able to tell where it was. He said that he was a local, but I'm afraid he was not as good as some people who settled here for 1 or 2 years. As a soldier, once he receives an order, he must complete the mission, no matter how difficult it is. This has been a habit he has developed over the years. After leaving the army, there will be no missions, but Su Weifeng is still a man of his word. The next day, Su Weifeng rented a business car, and then quickly went to buy a lot of things. At 9 o'clock, he came to the community where Qiao Yushan lived. Why didn't you come out with your uncle and aunt? Within 2 minutes, Su Weifeng actually saw Qiao Yushan coming out of a taxi that had just stopped, and immediately greeted her with a puzzled look on his face. Oh. Qiao Yushan turned her head and looked at him with a trace of confusion in her eyes, and then she showed a bright smile, blinked her eyes, and said, I took care of something in advance, and I just came back. Su Weifeng couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Although he only said one sentence, he felt something was wrong. Qiao Yushan's temperament changed a lot today. She was no longer the kind of high-handed and arrogant boss, but like a young and lively beautiful girl. Feeling the confusion in Su Weifeng's eyes, Qiao Yushan raised her chin and said, why, you like to see me with a stern face all day long? Can't I relax when we go out to play today? Su Weifeng immediately gave him a thumbs up and said, great, I didn't expect you to have such a side. I didn't even dare to recognize you. Qiao Yushan threw Su Weifeng another coquettish look and said, really? I'm afraid you'll get tired of seeing that side of me all the time. Changing the style will also give you a sense of freshness. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes, stretched out his hand, to hug Qiao Yushan's shoulders, and said with a smile, "Yes, yes, you really amaze me like this. Let me hug you." Ah. Qiao Yushan immediately jumped back a step, rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng, and said, "Don't make trouble in broad daylight. There are so many people watching." Su Weifeng took another step forward with a smile and said, "We are not doing anything else. We can't hug each other when we are in love. Do you really want to hug me?" Qiao Yushan stared at Su Weifeng and narrowed her eyes. "Yes, you are so cute today. I really can't help it." Su Weifeng opened his arms. "Okay, then hug me." Qiao Yushan raised her chin and puffed out her chest, but there was a mischievous look in her eyes. Su Weifeng's arm was getting closer and closer to Qiao Yushan's body, and Qiao Yushan's face was getting more and more nervous. Su Weifeng's arm suddenly stopped in the air, and then he put it down directly and said with a bitter smile, "You can't cheat me like this. Don't you know that human nature is the most vulnerable to the test, sister?" "Ah." Qiao Yushan exclaimed, and then the expression on her face relaxed all of a sudden, and then she showed a bright smile like a blooming flower, and said, "Did my sister mention me to you?" "No." Su Weifeng shook his head. "Then how do you know I'm not hers?" Qiao Yushan, "No, this should be a fake," Qiao Yushan asked curiously. Su Weifeng did not know whether to laugh or cry and said, "Even though you two look alike, there are still some differences between you. You can still see it if you look closely. In addition, you two have different personalities. How could I not notice such a big change suddenly? You are quite observant." The fake Qiao Yushan stretched out her hand and said, "Nice to meet you again, Lin Zhuangsun. Qiao Yushan is my cousin, Su Weifeng." Su Weifeng shook her hand, then politely let go, and said with a smile, "Cousins, you look so alike, it's really rare." Lin Zhuangsun smiled proudly and said, "Our mothers are twins, and our genes are more inclined to our mother, so we look alike." As they were talking, Qiao Yushan and the others had already walked out of the community. Seeing Su Weifeng and Song Zhuangsun standing together, Qiao Yushan's face suddenly changed. Her cousin was a mischievous girl, and now she saw Su Weifeng first. Could it be that she had been exposed? Chapter 9 Intimate Photos. Aunt. Uncle. Lin Zhuangsun ran over like a little bird. Song Yuru immediately grabbed Lin Zhuangsun's hand with a smile and said, "Zhuangsun, you are getting more and more beautiful. Do you have a boyfriend?" Lin Zhuangsun immediately pouted, shook Song Yuru's arm, and said, "Aunt, can you stop focusing on these things? My sister has a boyfriend, and you are staring at me again. Please, let me go. I don't want to find a boyfriend so early. I haven't had enough fun yet. You are only 1 year younger than your sister, and you are not young anymore. You are not happy that I care about you." Song Yuru glared at Lin Zhuangsun and continued the topic. Lin Zhuangsun's face fell and she said, "Cheng Cheng, you care about me, but we are going out to play today, so let's put this matter aside for now." Then she let go of Song Yuru and ran straight to Qiao Yushan, saying with a resentful look on her face, "Sister, you're so mean. You found a boyfriend and didn't even inform me. Do you still treat me as your sister?" Qiao Yushan had already exchanged glances with Su Weifeng just now, and knowing that she hadn't been exposed, she relaxed and said, "Do I have to report everything to you?" Lin Zhuangsun said even more resentfully, "Qiao Yushan, you've changed. Now that you have a boyfriend, you don't like your sister anymore. You value women over your sister, and I despise you." Qiao Yushan knocked Lin Zhuangsun on the head and glared at her, saying, "Don't make it more dramatic here. I've told you today." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "It's quite hot outside. Let's get in the car and talk." Zhao Lanqing looked at everyone chatting and laughing, and suddenly felt redundant, and felt really bad. Zhao, get in the car quickly. What are you thinking about?" Song Yuru's voice sounded in his ears. Zhao Lanqing was shocked. Song Yuru was still optimistic about him, which made him confident again. Several people got in the car. Qiao Yuanzheng and Song Yuru sat in the last row. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangsun sat in the first row. Su Weifeng drove, and Zhao Lanqing sat in the co-pilot seat. Along the way, the car was filled with Lin Zhuangsun's voice, and the atmosphere was not dull at all. This lively girl really livened up the atmosphere. After more than an hour's drive, the car finally turned into a valley from a rugged road. When it turned into the valley, everyone felt that the view in front of them was suddenly open, and Lin Zhuangxuan shouted excitedly, "It's so beautiful, pure and natural." Su Weifeng parked the car by the small lake, and everyone got out of the car and looked around at the scenery. Not bad, not bad. This place has not been artificially transformed, and there is no noise from tourists. It is indeed a good place to relax. Qiao Yushan also praised. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Uncle, I've prepared a fishing rod. Are you interested in fishing for some? The mountain and water fish here are extremely delicious." "Okay." Qiao Yushan's eyes suddenly lit up. Su Weifeng took the fishing rod from the car and said to Song Yuru, "Auntie, there are a lot of wild vegetables in the mountains. Do you want to get some?" Song Yuru took the fence and shovel handed over by Su Weifeng and couldn't help but chuckled and said, "Are I asking the two of us to be the laborers and prepare a picnic for you?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "We don't know which wild vegetables are delicious, so auntie has to do it." "Okay, leave it to me." Before Qiao Yushan came here, she was always worried that her parents would not have a good time, but now they are obviously very satisfied. Walking to Su Weifeng's side, Qiao Yushan asked in confusion, "How do you know that my father likes fishing? And how do you know that my mother likes digging wild vegetables?" "It's very simple. Men, especially those who have reached a position like uncle, will like to pursue quiet and peacefulness. Even if they didn't like it before, fishing is obviously the most suitable in such an environment. As for aunt, it's even simpler. At this age, eating wild vegetables is a kind of health preservation. Being able to dig them by hand is also a rare game experience. Aunt will naturally not refuse. You are quite good at analyzing human nature." Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng in surprise and couldn't help but praise him. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "I'm a person who must do what I say and do it well, otherwise I won't agree. Keep your word. This is a good quality." Qiao Yushan nodded and had a new appreciation for Su Weifeng. "Come on, such a beautiful scenery. I will take some photos for you." Lin Zhuangxuan ran over. Qiao Yushan immediately said subconsciously, "No, just have fun." Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smile, "Such a beautiful scenery. If you two don't take a few photos, it would be a waste of time. I tell you, you don't know if you will have time to come here again in the future." Qiao Yushan didn't want to take pictures, but she didn't want to take pictures with Su Weifeng. But now she couldn't refuse, so she had to stand with Su Weifeng. "Hey, can you two get closer? Hey, what's with your expressions? Smile. Wait, brother-in-law, hug my sister a little bit. Sister, can you be a little more coquettish? Don't always have that stinky face. Are you going to take pictures or not? Why is there so much trouble?" Qiao Yushan was impatient with Lin Zhuangxuan's command and glared at him. "It's not that I'm too nosy, it's your behavior. I feel like there weren't couples like you 30 years ago." Lin Zhuangxuan's words instantly made Qiao Yushan's temper disappear. Yes, Su Weifeng is her boyfriend. How can it be so awkward to take pictures with her boyfriend? And she had already behaved like that just now. I really don't know if Lin Zhuangxuan saw something. Su Weifeng smiled at this time. "Zhuangxuan, although your sister and I have known each other for more than a month, we have never taken pictures together, especially when others take pictures. It's unnatural. You should be more tolerant." "What's unnatural about taking a picture? You two are really old-fashioned. I really don't know how you two got together." Lin Zhuangxuan curled his lips with disdain. Su Weifeng put his hand on Qiao Yushan's shoulder, then squeezed it gently, and then hugged him to his side. Qiao Yushan's body was still a little stiff, but she still followed the force and leaned on Su Weifeng, muttering in her heart, "It's just a photo. It's nothing. Smile a little. Smile sweeter." Click, click, click. Lin Zhuangxuan kept pressing the shutter of her phone, freezing the intimacy of the two together. Chapter 10. Means of coaxing people. Qiao Yushan was definitely a great beauty. At this moment, she was so close to him that Su Weifeng could smell her faint fragrance. Coupled with the physical contact, she couldn't help but feel a little distracted. Now Lin Zhuangxuan forced him to hug Qiao Yushan, so everything he did was to complete his mission and pretend to be a good boyfriend. So from the cautiousness at the beginning, it soon became natural. Qiao Yushan also felt that Su Weifeng's movements were a bit casual, but she couldn't stop him. Not only could she not stop him, but she couldn't even escape. In addition, she had to cooperate. It would be fine if she cooperated, but she had to show a happy and sweet smile on her face. For her, it was even more uncomfortable than being tortured. Lin Zhuangxuan finally let the two go. Qiao Yushan just relaxed a little, but Su Weifeng had already breathed a sigh of relief and whispered, "I'm so tired." Qiao Yushan turned her head to look at Su Weifeng. This guy's face was actually wearing an extremely tired expression, which suddenly made her feel indescribably uncomfortable, and she looked at Su Weifeng coldly. Su Weifeng took a step back and said, "What's with that expression on your face? I didn't mean to take advantage of you just now. Do you think you could have gotten away with it if I hadn't done that?" Qiao Yushan snorted. Although she knew that Su Weifeng was right, she still felt quite uncomfortable. She said in a deep voice, "Next, you better spend more time around my parents, or Zhuangxuan, but try not to be around me, so that people won't notice. Is it okay for me not to hang out with my girlfriend when I'm out to play?" Qiao Yushan said coldly, "Aren't you here to accompany my parents today? Isn't it enough to ask you to come and make my parents happy? What you said makes sense. Okay, then I'll go set up a tent first, and then go see if my uncle has caught any fish." Qiao Yushan watched Su Weifeng move things into the car, and the corners of her mouth twitched. She had never had such physical contact with other men in her life, but now she was letting Su Weifeng take advantage of her. She felt a little aggrieved in her heart. Su Weifeng hummed a little tune, and he was in a pretty good mood. Pretending to be a boyfriend was really good, especially after taking advantage of her. Qiao Yushan's angry and helpless expression was really interesting. Zhao Lanqing was fishing with Qiao Yuan's heng, so Su Weifeng didn't go with him, but came to Song Yuru's side. "Auntie, you picked up so many wild vegetables, it's amazing. Nowadays, many people don't even recognize wild vegetables, but you found the most delicious ones here." After coming over, Su Weifeng flattered her. Song Yuru is also very excited now, and said with a smile, "This kind of wild vegetables is good for the human body. I didn't expect there are so many wild vegetables here. It's really impossible to pick them all." Su Weifeng said, "Then let's pick more later, then boil them in hot water, and then dry them, and we can take them back. When you want to eat them, soak them in water. Although the taste is not so good, the nutrients will still be retained. Can you cook it?" "Yes, we often perform tasks in the wild. How to survive in the wild is a compulsory course. What wild vegetables are delicious, and how to preserve them are also very familiar to us." "Okay, then do you see anything else delicious here?" "Yes, look at this one. It looks like a cat's paw. This wild vegetable is very tender. There is also this one. It looks thorny, but the new teeth are quite delicious." Su Weifeng taught Song Yuru how to identify some wild vegetables she didn't know, and then talked to her about some knowledge about diet and maintenance. "It's a bit of a waste if you just dip these wild vegetables in some sauce and eat them fresh. How can you not waste them? These wild vegetables actually have some medicinal properties. Just like this thorny wild vegetable, if you add some white peony and yam to make porridge, it can nourish the kidneys and nourish the essence, especially for men." Song Yuru couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. It seemed that this topic shouldn't be discussed by the two of them, but Su Weifeng immediately said, "There are also wild vegetables like this cat's paw. If you add some apples and pears, whether it's made into fruit salad or squeezed into juice, it is effective for beauty and anti-aging." "Really?" Song Yuru looked at Su Weifeng suspiciously. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Auntie, this is just a folk remedy, but I have done some research in this area. I will never lie to you. Besides, these things are usually non-toxic. There is absolutely no harm in trying them." Song Yuru nodded and said, "Oh, that's true. Why do you feel like you know everything?" Su Weifeng smiled modestly and said, "Auntie, you are complimenting me. Sometimes, if you want to survive, you have to master all kinds of knowledge." Song Yuru said admiringly, "No wonder you can become a captain at such a young age. That's all in the past. I will work harder in the future." Although Zhao Lanqing was fishing with Qiao Yuan's heng, he still glanced at Su Weifeng from time to time. Seeing that Su Weifeng and Song Yuru were chatting so well, a strong sense of crisis arose. This Su Weifeng is simply a monster. Auntie was very satisfied with him yesterday. It has only been a short time since he came out, and he has already made Auntie smile and nod from time to time. This clearly shows that he recognizes Su Weifeng very much. At this time, Su Weifeng came to Qiao Yuan's hang again, took a fishing rod, and started fishing. In a short time, he actually caught 2 big fish. Not bad. Qiao Yuan's hang was also interested. Uncle, the fish here are a little different from the fish outside. They are more cunning when biting the hook. When the swim bladder moves, you have to lift the rod. If you lift it too late, it will spit it out. Qiao Yuan's heng touched his chin and said, "Oh, so that's why. No wonder I always get an empty rod and the food is eaten. This is also a characteristic of the fish here. Lift the rod." Qiao Yuan's heng subconsciously lifted the rod violently, and a big fish was hooked. Su Weifeng gave a thumbs up and said, "Uncle's skills are really amazing." He caught it right away, as soon as he knew the nature of the fish. Qiao Yuan's heng laughed and said, "Boy, you don't have to flatter me. Without your guidance, I'm afraid I would have sat here for a whole day in vain." Although he knew that Su Weifeng was flattering him and instructing him on how to fish, the way Su Weifeng spoke made him feel comfortable listening to it. It was not the kind of unprincipled flattery, but he pointed out the problem in pleasant words. This is definitely a kind of ability and a level. Chapter 11. My strength does not allow it. When the grill was set up, Su Weifeng showed off his skills again, and Qiao Yuan's heng and Song Yuru had a much better impression of him. As parents, the first standard for a son-in-law is not only to be good to their daughter, but also to be capable. A capable son-in-law will not only benefit their daughter in the future, but also the old couple. Obviously, Su Weifeng is too capable in this regard. He has thought of almost everything for you, so you don't have to worry about it at all. The old couple didn't say it directly, but Lin Zhuangxuan didn't hesitate to criticize Su Weifeng. "Brother-in-law, your barbecue skills are really good. The grilled skewers are fragrant and tender. This is the first time I have eaten such delicious skewers." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "You are exaggerating." "It's not an exaggeration. When I go out for barbecue with my friends, the things they grill are simply inedible compared to you. You must go with me when we go out to play in the future." "Ha, no problem." Su Weifeng agreed with a smile. Qiao Yushan said with a smile, "You are eating barbecue and you bring someone who grilled it specially for you? You are so arrogant." Lin Zhuangxuan smiled and said, "Sister, you are not so stingy, are you? Are you afraid that I will steal your boyfriend?" Song Yuru slapped Lin Zhuangxuan on the head and said angrily, "Silly girl, it's nonsense to talk like that. Eat your barbecue quickly." After eating, Su Weifeng sorted the garbage into bags and put them in the trunk of the car. Zhao Lanking frowned and said, "Why did you load the garbage into the car? Will the car smell good?" Su Weifeng said, "It's rare to have such a good place where few people come. I don't want to come here again in the future and find it full of garbage." Song Yuru praised immediately, "Not bad, not bad. You have a strong awareness of environmental protection. We didn't pay attention to environmental protection before and have suffered too much. Environmental protection must start from individuals and must start from little by little." Zhao Lanking's face suddenly turned black. Why is he so stupid? Song Yuru works in the Environmental Protection Bureau. Why hasn't he shown any performance in this regard? But it's too late to save it. Song Yuru and Qiao Yushan both have the habit of taking a nap. Not long after eating, the two went to sleep in the tent. Lin Zhuangxuan was full of energy. He looked at the lake and said, "It would be nice if we could go into the lake and play in the water." Su Weifeng said, "Go upstream a little from here. There is a creek with clear water. You can play in the water there without disturbing your uncle who is fishing." Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said impatiently, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up. Go, go. Take this girl away quickly. I can't go fishing well if she is here." Although the fish in the lake are very greedy, there are really a lot of fish. After knowing how to fish, Qiao Yuan's heng had a good harvest and was in high spirits for fishing. Miao Zhuangxuan was chattering here, and he had been a little worried for a long time. It would be his dream for Su Weifeng to take her away. Zhao Lanking actually didn't like fishing, but he couldn't go with Su Weifeng and the others now, so he could only stay here with them. He felt an inexplicable sense of frustration. He had always been cautious in front of Qiao Yushan's family. It was not easy for Qiao Yushan and his wife to have a good impression of him. Su Weifeng suddenly appeared, and he didn't see how hard he tried. He just coaxed the two elders casually, and then took his position. The water of the small lake comes from a stream, which is only more than 2 meters wide and 10 centimeters deep. Small fish swim freely in it. Lin Zhuangxuan threw off her shoes, rolled up her trouser legs, and prepared to go into the water. But the shore was still quite slippery. She was so anxious that she didn't step firmly. She screamed, her feet slipped into the stream, and her body fell on her back. Be careful. Su Weifeng came behind Lin Zhuangxuan in one step and put his hand around her waist. Lin Zhuangxuan instinctively tightened her hands and hugged Su Weifeng. She stomped her feet twice and finally stepped steadily. I was scared to death. Thank you. After calming down, Lin Zhuangxuan found that this posture was quite ambiguous, and she wanted to let go of Su Weifeng and stand up straight. Su Weifeng directly supported her waist and let her stand steadily, then let go, and said with a smile, be careful, otherwise you will be covered in mud. It must be said that Lin Zhuangxuan's waist is really soft. Even if Su Weifeng only supported her for a while, he didn't want to let go. But now Lin Zhuangxuan is also his sister-in-law. Of course he can't have any thoughts about her, even if this identity is fake. I know. Lin Zhuangxuan stuck out her tongue and then slowly waded in the water, but the stones under the water were covered with moss and so on, which was very slippery, and she always couldn't walk steadily. She looked at Su Weifeng for help and said, brother-in-law, come down and hold me. No problem. Su Weifeng went into the water with his shoes on, and then took up the little hand that Lin Zhuangxuan handed over. Lin Zhuangxuan was able to walk steadily now, kicking the stream water, and said comfortably, comfortable. It's so comfortable. Su Weifeng accompanied Lin Zhuangxuan, and he felt indescribably relaxed. In recent years, he was on the verge of death for half of the year. Even if he had such a strong ability, he could not guarantee that he would be able to see the sun the next day. So Su Weifeng's heart was still dark and violent. Lin Zhuangxuan's sunshine seemed to dissolve that darkness, which really made him feel comfortable. Brother-in-law. No, I should call you fake brother-in-law, right? Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly turned his head with a mischievous smile on his face. What fake brother-in-law? Su Weifeng pretended to be confused. Lin Zhuangxuan bumped him with her shoulder and said, you're still pretending in front of me. Do you really think I can't see it? You're simply a fake, just a shield used by my sister. Su Weifeng's face was still calm, and he said, you're overthinking it. I'm indeed your sister's boyfriend. Forget it. Lin Zhuangxuan curled her lips and said, look at the two of you. Have you ever taken the initiative to get together? And when I took pictures of you, you didn't look like a couple at all. You weren't much better than strangers. If all couples were like you, then mankind would have become extinct long ago. Su Weifeng shrugged helplessly and said, do you think I want to be like this? I also want to be affectionate with your sister. Why not just hold hands and play with you like we are doing now? But your sister's strength doesn't allow it. Chapter 12 Falling into the pit. Strength does not allow it. Lin Zhuangxuan was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing, patted Su Weifeng's shoulder, and laughed even louder. After a while, he said, what you said makes sense. Strength does not allow it. Strength does not allow it. Haha. Yeah, I can't help it. She is just like that. She said yes, but her body still resisted. If you hadn't ridiculed her today, we wouldn't even have a photo. You have to send it to me later. I want to keep it well. It's the first time I took a photo with her. It's worth keeping. Lin Zhuangxuan's smile faded, and her face was replaced with a sympathetic expression. She said, I said it's really not easy for you, but I think you are not bad. Why do you like my sister? She looks good and has ability, but being her boyfriend is really not fun. Su Weifeng burst out laughing and said, if your sister hears you saying this, are you sure she won't hit you? Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, I dare to say it in front of her. Which man can stand her character who can put down everything for work and career? Su Weifeng smiled and said, it's just that everyone has their own preferences. The more she is like this, the more I want to be with her. Men are so cheap. Lin Zhuangxuan gave Su Weifeng a look of contempt. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, who knows? Anyway, let's do it little by little. I believe that, as long as I work hard, I will definitely achieve success with your sister. Lin Zhuangxuan blinked and said, then I wish you success. However, if you bribe me, I might be able to provide you with some information, so that you can get twice the result with half the effort. Okay, if you can help me, I will be more confident. Just tell me what you want. That's what you said. Su Weifeng laughed and said, of course, but I don't have much money, so don't make it too difficult for me. I'm not that materialistic. Don't worry, I might ask you for help with something. Okay, then if you need it, just tell me. Deal. The two clapped their hands and smiled wickedly. Just as he was laughing happily, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly cried out ouch, then jumped up, hugged Su Weifeng's neck with both hands, and wrapped his legs around Su Weifeng's waist. What's wrong? Su Weifeng was also shocked by Lin Zhuangxuan's reaction, which was too sudden. Lin Zhuangxuan's face turned pale, and she buried her face in Su Weifeng's neck, shouting in fear, it hurts. Something is biting my foot, it hurts. Su Weifeng quickly carried Lin Zhuangxuan to sit on the stone next to him, and then he couldn't help laughing when he saw it. On Lin Zhuangxuan's right foot, a crayfish was still clamping her toes tightly. Don't shout, it's just a crayfish. Lin Zhuangxuan leaned over to take a look, and then shouted, it bites me, you should get it off quickly. Su Weifeng stretched out his hand, and pinched the crayfish with 2 fingers. The powerful force made the crayfish feel pain and loosen the clamp immediately. Okay, hey, your skin is too tender, it's bleeding. Lin Zhuangxuan breathed a sigh of relief, patted her chest, and said in shock, it's too abominable, it pinched my foot. Su Weifeng frowned and said, the crayfish in this stream are prone to parasites. It's better to treat the wound. No, it's just a small wound. Lin Zhuangxuan bent her leg, and looked at it. Su Weifeng said, it's better to be careful. You bear the pain and I will help you squeeze out some blood. Generally, there will be no problem. Oh, okay, thank you. Lin Zhuangxuan was straightforward and didn't hesitate. Su Weifeng grabbed Lin Zhuangxuan's ankle, and then with his other hand, he gently pinched both sides of the wound. With a little force, a drop of blood was squeezed out. Hiss. Lin Zhuangxuan grinned. This time it was still a little painful. While squeezing blood from Lin Zhuangxuan's wound, Su Weifeng also surrounded her wound with his true energy. Su Weifeng was able to become the captain of Long Zio and a top-level warrior, because he was a true master, a master with true ki. Although true ki is not as mysterious as described in novels, and cannot make people fly over eaves and walls, or have any peerless martial arts, it does have a certain bonus effect on combat. Another most important function is that it has a good auxiliary effect on human healing ability and self-recovery ability. Lin Zhuangxuan left a good impression on Su Weifeng. Being with her always makes people very happy, so Su Weifeng gave her some true ki, so that she can recover faster. Hey, brother-in-law, what are you doing? Lin Zhuangxuan's voice sounded in Su Weifeng's ears. I'm treating your wounds. Su Weifeng said naturally. Treat the wound. Are you sure? Why do I feel like you are touching my foot? Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly felt a little embarrassed. At that time, he really didn't think so much. Now that he thought about it, this action was really touching. He opened his mouth to explain, but he couldn't say it about using true ki, and secondly, Lin Zhuangxuan would definitely not believe it. I really didn't expect it. Lin Zhuangxuan retracted his foot and broke away from Su Weifeng's hand, then shook his head repeatedly, with resentment on his face, and said, you actually want to take advantage of me? Zhuangxuan, I said I really don't have such an idea, do you believe it? Su Weifeng smiled bitterly, feeling that such an explanation was really powerless. What do you think? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng in anger. I don't believe it myself. Su Weifeng shook his head, and he had to take the blame. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly kicked Su Weifeng with his foot and said, but I believe it. This time Su Weifeng was stunned. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, I feel like you didn't have that kind of lewd feeling at that time. Zhuangxuan, you are really smart. Su Weifeng gave Lin Zhuangxuan a thumbs up and said, I don't know how to explain it. You actually gave me a perfect reason. Puff. Lin Zhuangxuan really laughed this time and said, you are also very good at taking advantage of others. Su Weifeng also laughed, and the embarrassment between the two seemed to be resolved in an instant. Lin Zhuangxuan stood up, looked at Su Weifeng, took a step forward, and said casually, brother-in-law, do you think my feet look good? Good. Do they feel good? Good. Su Weifeng answered subconsciously, and then was petrified in an instant. He fell into the trap set by Lin Zhuangxuan again. Chapter 13 Foot Control. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly took 2 steps back, pointed at Su Weifeng, and shouted in horror, oh, you are so dirty, you are actually a foot control. Su Weifeng said weakly, this, Zhuangxuan, you are just trying to trick me. Then you answered so happily just now. If you didn't have an inner approval, would you answer so quickly? Don't deny it, this is definitely the answer in your subconscious mind, which is a reflection of your true inner thoughts. Su Weifeng grinned and said, Zhuangxuan, you also understand psychology. Lin Zhuangxuan said proudly, then you see, my minor in college is psychology, what else can I say now? Su Weifeng shrugged and said, well, to be honest with you, I really didn't notice it before. Could it be that I really have such a problem? Lin Zhuangxuan nodded repeatedly and said, that's definitely it. You were very focused and obsessed at that time. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, if you let me say that, it doesn't seem like you're a foot fetishist. Zhuangxuan, your feet are really beautiful. This is the first time I've seen such perfect feet. It's normal to be a little obsessed with them, right? Then you've seen a lot of girls' feet before. As a man, even if that was true, he absolutely couldn't admit it. Su Weifeng immediately shook his head and said firmly, not even your sister has ever looked and touched them at such a close distance in real life. The others were all on the internet, in movies and TV. Lin Zhuangxuan pointed at Su Weifeng and said, you're still saying no? When watching TV or movies, who would pay special attention to girls' feet? You foot fetishist. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan in amazement. It was the first time he realized that a man was really asking for trouble when debating an issue with a woman. He hurriedly said, I'm really defeated. Okay, I admit it. Ha ha ha. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly laughed so hard that her body shook. After a while, she patted Su Weifeng's shoulder and said, this is not a problem. Everyone loves beauty. It's just that the part you like is a little special. Su Weifeng said in confusion, don't you think this is a very dirty thing? What's so dirty about this? It's normal. Men have to like women's faces, breasts, and so on. I seem to have convinced you again. I feel justified all of a sudden. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile. It was really interesting to talk to Lin Zhuangxuan. But you may like me. You are my sisters. You are committing a crime. Yes. Then, now we have to take revenge. The crayfish actually pinched my feet. We have to catch them all and eat them. No problem. Wait a minute. Today I will take you to catch all the crayfish here. Su Weifeng took Lin Zhuangxuan to get some leftover meat. Song Yuru and Qiao Yushan woke up at the same time, so Lin Zhuangxuan called them to catch crayfish together. Song Yuru and Qiao Yushan were also quite interested, and the 4 of them came to the stream together. Su Weifeng tied the meat to a branch and put it directly in the water. After a while, many crayfish came out from the cracks in the rocks to eat the meat. When the branch was lifted to the surface of the water, the crayfish did not let go and were easily caught. This time, not only Lin Zhuangxuan was excited, but even Qiao Yushan and Song Yuru were excited, and they all learned to fish for crayfish. However, even if they caught the crayfish, they did not dare to touch it with their hands, especially when they put it in the bucket. Some crayfish ran out and screamed. It ran away. Su Weifeng, come here quickly. Ah, it's going to pinch me. Su Weifeng, help. Xiao Su, come and help me, otherwise we will all fall into the water. Su Weifeng was really busy, but he was surrounded by 2 beauties and had to please his mother-in-law. Even if it was fake, he was doing his best and running around. When the 4 people came back with a full harvest, the atmosphere was extremely harmonious. Song Yuru was even more excited and said to Qiao Yuan's Heng, old Qiao, look, Xiao Su led us to catch so many crayfish. It turns out that catching crayfish is so fun. I have never had so much fun since I was a child. Xiao Lanking's mouth twitched. It was over. Originally, his confidence in pursuing Qiao Yushan was here with Song Yuru. Now it was obvious that Song Yuru had already stood on Su Weifeng's side. He was almost certain that there was no chance at all. If it weren't for his good upbringing, he would have patted his butt and left at this time. At around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone had played almost enough and were ready to pack up and go back. Lin Zhuangxuan's phone rang and she walked aside to answer the call. This call was very important. Lin Zhuangxuan answered the call while walking away, and no one cared. Qiao Yushan accidentally looked up the hillside and then grabbed Su Weifeng's arm in fear, saying, What is that? Oh my god. A bear. Su Weifeng couldn't help but exclaimed, and his face turned a little ugly. There are actually wild bears in this mountain? Qiao Yushan's face turned even paler. Everyone looked up the hillside at this time and saw a black bear slowly walking down the mountain. It was just like what you see in the zoo, and it was also naive and stupid. Don't move around so as not to attract its attention. Su Weifeng reminded everyone in a low voice. It's just a bear, what's wrong? Xiao Lanking said disdainfully. He had been holding it in for a day, and seeing Su Weifeng's nervous look, he still wanted to hit him. Su Weifeng said, wild bears are different from those seen in zoos. They are very aggressive and ferocious. Even if they encounter a tiger, they dare to do it. Now everyone get in the car. It's so stupid, it doesn't matter if it's a little ferocious. Everyone got in the car. Xiao Lanking naturally wanted to show his courage at this time. At least he could suppress Su Weifeng, and said something a little sarcastically. Su Weifeng said in a deep voice, stupid? You didn't see it hunting. Its speed is so fast that you can't imagine. Xiao Lanking said disdainfully, don't scare people here. With such a clumsy appearance, you can still use the word agile. Fuck. Xiao Lanking just finished thanking and burst out with swear words because the black bear suddenly ran down the mountain and the speed was no less than that of a galloping horse. Coupled with its huge physique, it was like a high-speed tank at this time, and the small trees passing by were directly broken, and the power was soaring to the sky. Zhuangxuan. Qiao Yuanzheng's face suddenly changed and he shouted. Song Yuru and the others were stunned for a moment, and then their faces changed drastically, because the direction the black bear was rushing towards was exactly the direction where Lin Zhuangxuan was. Chapter 14. Bear Fight. Zhuangxuan. There's a bear. Run. Several people shouted, hoping that Lin Zhuangxuan would hear them and run back to get in the car. But Lin Zhuangxuan was listening to the phone with headphones at this time and was talking very seriously. In addition, he was a little far away from everyone, so he didn't react at all and was still walking leisurely and making a phone call. What should I do? What should I do? Song Yuru grabbed Qiao Yuanzheng's hand and cried anxiously. Qiao Yuanzheng gritted his teeth and said, I'll go save her. As a soldier, his bloodiness suddenly surged out. Without saying a word, he opened the car door and rushed out. Xiao Lanking's face changed suddenly. At this time, he seemed to be supposed to follow Qiao Yuanzheng out, but looking at the might of the black bear rushing down the mountain, he hesitated. Weifeng. Weifeng is over. Qiao Yushan pointed to the front and shouted loudly. At this time, everyone realized that Su Weifeng didn't get in the car at all. He was running towards Lin Zhuangxuan quickly. When Qiao Yuanzheng got out of the car, he was more than 100 meters away from him. Everyone's heart suddenly rose to their throats. Lin Zhuangxuan was like the finish line, while Su Weifeng and the black bear were like two sprinters, both wanting to be the first to reach the finish line. They had forgotten that Su Weifeng was just one person. Even if he rushed there first, could he stop the black bear from hurting people? Lin Zhuangxuan finally finished the call, raised her hand to take off the headset, and then casually looked up, and then saw a black shadow that directly broke through a bush in front of it and rushed out with the wind. Lin Zhuangxuan saw that it was a black bear. The black bear opened its mouth wide at this time, and its sharp fangs reflected the cold light at this time. It was rushing towards her, and it was already in front of her. She could even feel the bloody smell from the hot air exhaled from the black bear's mouth. At this time, except for screaming, her mind was blank. She stood there stupidly and couldn't think of escaping at all. Songyuru and Qiao Yushan in the car both screamed and closed their eyes and dared not look anymore. At this moment, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly felt a heavy blow to her body, and then she flew up, and then Su Weifeng's face appeared in her eyes. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lin Zhuangxuan felt a strong force coming from Su Weifeng, causing her chest to ache, and Su Weifeng's face suddenly twisted. Arsehole! Su Weifeng took a breath of cold air. When he came over, it was too urgent, so he could only hug Lin Zhuangxuan and roll over to avoid the bear's mouth. But he couldn't avoid the black bear's claw, and was hit hard on the back. The claw of the black bear was more than 1,000 pounds. If it was an ordinary person, he would be beaten to the point of breaking bones, and losing half his life. But Su Weifeng's body had been tempered for so many years, not to mention steel bones, but his ability to withstand blows was also super strong. This blow did hurt him a lot, but it didn't cause him serious injuries. After several rolls, Su Weifeng lifted up the claw and jumped up, then jumped to the side again, avoiding the bear's second attack. You beast, you treat me like a sick cat when the tiger doesn't show its power. Su Weifeng couldn't help but get annoyed. He growled and threw Lin Zhuangxuan to Qiao Yushan who was running over, shouting, I have to teach you a lesson today. Lin Zhuangxuan felt like she had no weight and flew 5 or 6 meters away. When she landed, she didn't even fall. You go first. Su Weifeng yelled at Lin Zhuangxuan again. Brother-in-law, you. Lin Zhuangxuan stood there and yelled, tears welling up in her eyes. It was a black bear, and Su Weifeng was trying to stop it for her. I'm fine. I just taught it a lesson. Stay away. Su Weifeng yelled and rushed directly towards the black bear. Qiao Yushan ran over at this time. Seeing this scene, his eyes almost popped out. What was going on? Looking at Su Weifeng's appearance, he was going to fight with the black bear. Boy, can you do it? Qiao Yushan asked with a sullen face. Uncle, don't worry. A stupid bear can't hurt me. While Su Weifeng was speaking, he had already kicked the black bear hard in the chest. The black bear was originally standing upright, but after being kicked, it was kicked backwards and rolled over, and then it stood firmly on all fours. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes suddenly widened, and Lin Zhuangxuan opened his mouth dryly, not knowing how to open his mouth. The black bear is an animal with a very bad temper. Su Weifeng destroyed its prey, and it was hit again, which made it furious. It roared and stood up again, and rushed directly to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng was not afraid at all. He snorted and dodged the bear's frontal attack by turning sideways. He kicked the black bear again, and kicked it directly on the butt. The black bear staggered after being kicked, and turned to pounce on Su Weifeng again. Qiao Yushan saw it clearly and was shocked. The black bear must weigh 500 to 600 kilograms. It was not just a piece of meat, but muscles full of strength. It could make Su Weifeng stagger with one kick. The power of Su Weifeng's kick was really unimaginable. Qiao Yushan had reached this position in the army, and had come into contact with many special forces. He suddenly started to wonder, even among those in the Northern Special Forces, are there really people who are so fierce? It seems impossible to have such strength, right? The bear pounced on Su Weifeng several times, but did not hurt Su Weifeng at all. But Su Weifeng kicked and hit it, making it scream. Beat it. Brother-in-law. Beat it hard. This bastard actually wants to eat me. Kill it today, and I'm going to eat its bare paws. Lin Zhuangxuan finally recovered at this time, waving her fists and shouting loudly. Su Weifeng also had to admire Lin Zhuangxuan's mentality. After being so frightened just now, she could still say such words. Su Weifeng laughed and said, it's not okay to kill bears. They are national protected animals. Killing them is illegal. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately shouted angrily, then it's not illegal if it eats me. You can beat it to death if it eats people, but we can't kill it if it hasn't eaten people yet. How about this? I'll beat it hard and let you vent your anger. Lin Zhuangxuan said hatefully, okay, you beat it so that it can't take care of itself and knock out all its teeth. I'm going to starve it to death. Su Weifeng laughed and said, okay, little stupid bear, who told you to want to eat Zhuangxuan? Today I'll teach you a lesson. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Physical Examination. What Lin Zhuangxuan said was indeed very embarrassing. If this ferocious protected animal hurts or even eats people, it can only be killed afterwards, to prevent it from hurting people again. But before there is such a fact of hurting people, it really cannot be killed. However, generally wild animals will slip away early when they encounter people and will not easily hurt people. However, animals like bears are more courageous and have a variety of diets, so they often hurt people. Unfortunately, it met Su Weifeng today, a ruthless man who is more fierce than a bear. Although the bear is ferocious at this time, it is like a puppy in front of him, allowing him to kick and hit it. Good fight. Come on, brother-in-law. Ha ha ha. Beat me harder, you stinky bear. I made you want to eat me. Do you regret it now? It's no use for you to yell. Today I have to let you know that I, Lin Zhuangxuan, am not so delicious. Qiao Yushan was dumbfounded when he saw Su Weifeng beating the bear. But when he saw Lin Zhuangxuan's appearance, he couldn't help but stroke his forehead. What kind of person is this niece? She is so thick-skinned that she treats such a dangerous thing as a game. It's also thanks to Su Weifeng's strength, otherwise this girl would have become a meal in the bear's stomach at this moment. Animals are bullies and fears are strong. After fighting for a while and suffering a lot of losses, it didn't have the intention to fight again. It turned around and wanted to run away. Su Weifeng kicked it on the butt a few more times and finally let it go. Brother-in-law, you just let it run away like this? Lin Zhuangxuan shouted with some dissatisfaction. Qiao Yushan glared and said, you are almost done, girl. If it really goes crazy, it won't be so easy to deal with. Brother-in-law is here. What are you afraid of? Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin, full of confidence. Su Weifeng came over at this time and said, Zhuangxuan, you were not injured just now, were you? Lin Zhuangxuan's face suddenly changed, and then the corner of his mouth twitched, and he said with a bitter face, I really didn't feel anything just now, but now that you said it, I really feel pain in my chest and back. Qiao Yushan suddenly became worried, looked him up and down, and said, the clothes are not torn, and there is no blood. There should be no external injuries, right? There shouldn't be, it's just that my brother-in-law came over and pounced on me just now, and the bear hit him, and I was also hit. Brother-in-law, I feel pain all over now. Are you really okay? Lin Zhuangxuan grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and looked at him carefully, almost lifting his clothes to take a look. It's okay. I can take more beatings than you. Besides, a lot of the force is transferred to you, so I can't bear much. You're lying, brother-in-law. Thank you. Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes suddenly turned red. Okay, this is not a big deal. Look at me, I'm alive and kicking. Don't be like this, uncle. Let's go. He specifically mentioned Qiao Yushan because he was afraid that Lin Zhuangxuan would be impulsive again and throw herself into his arms, which would be embarrassing. Qiao Yushan nodded and said, if there's anything, let's go over there and talk. The three of them walked back, and Qiao Yushan, Song Yuru and Zhao Lion King also hurried over. Song Yuru and Qiao Yushan hugged Lin Zhuangxuan together. They were really scared just now. If Lin Zhuangxuan got into trouble, they would definitely be heartbroken. After Qiao Yushan let go of Lin Zhuangxuan, she looked at Su Weifeng and said sincerely, thank you. Su Weifeng smiled and said, what's there to thank me for? I'm your boyfriend. It's my responsibility to protect your family. Qiao Yushan stared at Su Weifeng for a few seconds, then smiled brightly and said, you are really brave today. Are you not injured? No, it's just a little bear. Song Yuru also looked at Su Weifeng at this time. She was not like others. She directly asked Qiao Yushan to carefully check whether Su Weifeng's body was injured. No matter how Su Weifeng said he was fine, she was still worried. Su Weifeng had no choice but to go to the car with Qiao Yushan. He blinked at Qiao Yushan and said, wait a minute, just say you've checked it and it's okay. Qiao Yushan said seriously, no, take off your clothes for me to see. No way. Su Weifeng widened his eyes. Take it off, if I tell you to. Do you still need me to help you? Qiao Yushan widened her eyes. Su Weifeng finally realized that Qiao Yushan was serious. He grinned and said, "This. Hurry up." Qiao Yushan took a step forward. "Okay, I'll take it off." Su Weifeng turned around, raised his arms, and lifted up his t-shirt, revealing his back. There seemed to be only one red mark on his back, and it was very shallow. There were really no other injuries. "Turn around. Forget about the front. I just got slapped on the back by a bear. I told you to turn around. Why are you so slow?" Qiao Yushan said, and before Su Weifeng turned around, she had already stepped in front of Su Weifeng. "You." Qiao Yushan saw Su Weifeng's chest and shuddered involuntarily, and her eyes immediately turned away. What kind of chest is this? I don't know how many scars are intertwined together, like earthworms coiled together. It's really indescribable. I told you not to look at it. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and put down his clothes. "You." Qiao Yushan was stunned for a long time before she recovered from the shock and even stuttered. Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, "As a special forces soldier, it is inevitable to get injured when on a mission." Qiao Yushan's mouth twitched several times and said, "But you, how many injuries did you get?" Su Weifeng laughed and couldn't help but think of the last mission. All his injuries were caused by this mission. The skin on his chest was almost torn. It was really a miracle that he could save his life. Qiao Yushan suddenly bowed to Su Weifeng and said, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be like this. The scars on a soldier's body are medals of honor. I should salute you. I apologize for my shock just now." Su Weifeng showed a bright smile and said, "As expected of military family, you have different ideas." Qiao Yushan also smiled slightly and said, "You really surprised me. Haha, did I perform well enough?" Su Weifeng blinked. Qiao Yushan glanced back from the car window and found that her parents were some distance away and she probably couldn't hear what they said, so she nodded and said, "I'm really surprised. My parents should fully approve of you this time." Su Weifeng said with a smile, "My mom is also forcing me to do this. In the near future, you have to go to my house to help me." Qiao Yushan smiled bitterly and said, "You performed so well, I suddenly feel a lot of pressure." Chapter 16. It's not a good ending. After confirming that Su Weifeng was fine, everyone got in the car. Su Weifeng was still driving, but this time everyone's topic of conversation was entirely about Su Weifeng and his heroic behavior in beating the bear just now. Especially Lin Xuangsun. She saw it with her own eyes and described it vividly. After she finished speaking, she suddenly slapped herself in annoyance and said, "I'm so stupid. Why didn't I use my mobile phone to record this wonderful scene at that time?" Song Yuru said angrily, You were lucky enough to survive at that time, and you are still thinking about these things. No matter what, this is definitely the most exciting day of my life. It's a pity that I didn't record it." Qiao Yushan rolled her eyes at her and said, "The most precious things should be remembered in your heart. Why do you have to record them?" Zhao Lanking was more like an outsider at this time. When he arrived at the gate of Qiao Yushan's community, he got out of the car directly and then said that he had something to do and would go back today. Qiao Yuansheng and Song Yuru still felt a little guilty. After all, Zhao Lanking had been working very hard in recent years. It was a bit inhumane to kick him away at this time. But this is the happiness of their daughter's life. They now approve of Su Weifeng, the prospective son-in-law, so they can only give up Zhao Lanking and compensate him in other ways. "Zhao Su, let's have dinner together at home tonight." Everyone got off the car, and Song Yuru took the initiative to invite Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng cast his eyes on Qiao Yushan, and Song Yuru immediately glared at him and said, "You don't have to look at her. It's nothing to come to my house for dinner. You still need her approval." Although she said it harshly, Song Yuru was still satisfied in her heart. Su Weifeng obviously respected Qiao Yushan very much, and as a mother, she naturally felt comfortable. Qiao Yushan said a little aggrievedly, "I didn't say not to let him come." "Humph, don't always bully Zhao Su. Zhao Su, if Yushan wants to be naughty with you in the future, just tell me. I will say her. I have spoiled her since she was a child. Sometimes she is very stubborn and has a bad temper. You should be more tolerant." Qiao Yushan's eyes widened suddenly. "What's going on? Mom, aren't you too nice to Su Weifeng? Why does it feel like he's closer to her than to me, his biological daughter?" Su Weifeng hurriedly said, "Aunt, you're too kind. Yushan has a very good temper. Although she's a little strong, she's not as unreasonable as ordinary girls. This is really rare. I believe that, even if there are disagreements between us, we will definitely resolve them through communication. It's normal for a young couple to have disagreements. The only thing to be afraid of is irrational quarrels, which can't last long. Xiao Su, you're very steady and calm when encountering things. I believe you, but I just don't trust Yushan a little bit." Qiao Yushan was speechless, but she was too lazy to argue. Anyway, this boyfriend was fake, and everything would be fine after her parents left. Several people came to Qiao Yushan's house. Song Yuru was preparing to make dinner. Su Weifeng immediately said, "Auntie, let me make crayfish." Song Yuru immediately said happily, "You can make it. I was just worried about how to make it. I have never made it myself before." Su Weifeng said modestly, "I still like to eat, especially I like to make some wild game myself. I just don't know if it will suit everyone's taste. Otherwise, leave today's dinner to me." "Okay, then I'll leave it to you." Song Yuru smiled and nodded repeatedly. Su Weifeng immediately went to the kitchen to get busy. After about an hour, a full table of dishes was served. There was a large plate of spicy crayfish, a boiled fish, a small pot of wild vegetables, and a fragrant egg sauce on the side. These were all wild goods brought back from the valley today. With the addition of several other side dishes, it was simply delicious and fragrant. Just looking at and smelling it made people drool. "Do you have wine?" After Qiao Yuanzheng sat down, he looked at the table of dishes and felt like drinking. Su Weifeng immediately said, "I'll go down and buy it right away." Not long after, Su Weifeng brought back 2 bottles of white wine, plus 2 bottles of red wine, and said, "Uncle, this white wine is produced by our local winery. It is brewed with pure grains. Although it is not expensive, it tastes good. Come and try it." Qiao Yuanzheng's eyes lit up immediately and said, "Okay, I can't get used to those famous wines." After everyone started eating, several people praised Su Weifeng's cooking skills. Su Weifeng and Qiao Yuanzheng drank and chatted. Both of them were military men. When Qiao Yuanzheng was young, he also went to the battlefield. When the two chatted, they talked about the cruelty of the battlefield, the battles they had participated in, and some tactical analysis, as well as modern military technology and international military situations. Su Weifeng has his own unique insights, and he is definitely not the kind of person who hears things from others and has no opinions. This made Qiao Yuanzheng look at Su Weifeng with a new eye. The two of them talked more and more happily, and it seemed like they had met too late. After Lin Zhuangxuan had eaten her fill, she did not leave the table. She sat aside and listened to the two people chatting. She was actually listening with great interest, especially when Su Weifeng talked about his deeds. She looked at him with admiration. After Song Yuru and Qiao Yushan finished eating, they returned to Qiao Yushan's bedroom together. "Yushan, Xiao Su is really a good person." As soon as she entered the room, Song Yuru praised Su Weifeng. Qiao Yushan smiled and said, "Now you can rest assured, right? I'm so old, I still don't know how to choose a reliable person." Song Yuru rolled her eyes at her daughter and said, "That's because I was worried about you. Now I'm relieved. Xiao Su is definitely a good kid. You must treat him well in the future." "I know." Qiao Yushan nodded repeatedly. "Yushan." Song Yuru took Qiao Yushan's hand and sat down, saying earnestly, "Originally, when you young people are in love, mom shouldn't talk too much, but mom is still worried about your personality, so I'll nag you a little more. Mom, just say whatever you want to say." Qiao Yushan was now relaxed and said with a smile, "Mom is not such a conservative person, but I feel that you are too conservative. How come you haven't even let Xiao Su in the door after living together for a month? I'm not encouraging you to live together too early, but women can't be too reserved, which will make men feel hopeless in pursuing you, so sometimes you should let go. Mom." Qiao Yushan's eyes widened. "Haha, men will behave very well before they get you. Often after you really live together, his true nature will be more obvious. So in order to truly get to know a man, when everything feels similar, it is better to live together before marriage." Qiao Yushan's mouth twitched violently. She suddenly had a very bad feeling. It seemed like she had shot herself in the foot this time. It would be difficult to end up like this in the future. Chapter 17. Sense of superiority. The next afternoon, Qiao Yushan went to work, and Lin Zhuangxuan had her own things to do. Su Weifeng drove Qiao Yuan's Heng and Song Yuru to the station, and prepared food and drinks for them on the way. This made Qiao Yuan's Heng and Song Yuru even more satisfied. Although these were small things, they all reflected Su Weifeng's carefulness. His daughter only cared about her career, so her life would definitely be much worse. Su Weifeng was so careful, and he could cook well. With Qiao Yushan, he would definitely be able to take good care of her. This was a perfect complement between the two of them. He was definitely an ideal candidate for a son-in-law. After sending the two away, Su Weifeng returned home. There were actually guests at home, including his uncle, his aunt, Su Weifeng's cousin Su Yuqiang and his girlfriend Chenlan. In Su Weifeng's previous impression, his family was not close to his uncle's family. In the past, they had some quarrels for some reasons. After serving in the army for these years, it seemed that the relationship had eased, otherwise his uncle's family would not come to visit. The uncle asked with a smile, "It's been 6 or 7 years since I last saw Weifeng. I heard that you have been in the army. What level did you retire?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "I'm just an ordinary volunteer soldier." Su Weifeng didn't want his family to know that he had done so many dangerous missions in the past, so he only told his family that he was a volunteer soldier. It was only because Qiao Yuan's Heng was an officer that he told his family about his identity in the army. The uncle said, "Volunteer soldiers are not bad. The treatment in the army is very high now. You can get a lot of money after retiring. This is normal." But when he said this, he looked at his son Su Yuqiang with a proud look. Su Weifeng immediately understood that his uncle felt a sense of superiority in himself, so he didn't care and said with a smile, "It's okay." At this time, his aunt interjected, "I heard that you haven't found a job yet, but your mother is anxious to find you a girlfriend. I think you should find a job first. Once you have a stable income, it won't be too late to find a girlfriend. Otherwise, when people ask you where you work, you say you are unemployed. Which girl will be interested in you?" Before Su Weifeng could speak, his aunt immediately said, "Look at your cousin Yuqiang. Through his own efforts, he is now a department head of a company with an annual salary of 200,000. Once he does a good job, the people he comes into contact with are different. Your cousin-in-law Chenlan is the deputy director of the planning department of Linfeng Company, with an annual salary of 300,000. Speaking of her son and daughter-in-law, the aunt was extremely proud. Shenji immediately said in surprise, "So Xiaolan works at Linfeng Company?" The aunt said with a little surprise, "Sister-in-law, you also know Linfeng Company?" "Yes, Qiao Yushan, the president of Linfeng Company, has appeared on TV and the internet this year. She is really an amazing woman. Linfeng Company was a small loss-making company 2 years ago. In just 2 years, she has turned a small company into a large company with assets of over 100 million. Xiaolan working here is definitely promising." Su Weifeng looked at his mother in some confusion. His mother is a person who can't tolerate any sand in her eyes. Now she is so cooperative with others? This is not his style. But on second thought, perhaps with the increase of age, his mother is no longer as sharp as when she was young. In addition, this is also a relative, and such a close relative. Everyone has to speak to save face, so it's not good to be too fussy. The eldest aunt looked at Su Weifeng again and said, "So, that's why I told Xiao Feng to find a job quickly, so that he can find a girlfriend. Then as his job position is promoted, the level of the girlfriend he can find will be different. Just like Yuqiang, the girlfriend he found before was of poor quality. Look at Xiaolan now, there is simply no comparison." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Yes, I've been looking for a job recently. I think finding a job is not that difficult." Chenlan smiled and said, "Our company is recruiting now. Since you have been a soldier, you can come to our company to work as a security guard. Don't look down on security guards. The security guards in our company have a good salary, and there are also many benefits. At least earning 70,000 or 80,000 a year is not a problem. The eldest aunt also said, your mother knows how good Lin Feng Company is now, so it is definitely not shameful to work as a security guard there. Even if you don't have your cousin's ability and can't quickly become a middle level leader, but if you can hold on for a few years, your salary will be much higher. If there is any opportunity, you might be able to get a government position, and the income will be even more considerable. Chen Lan smiled, but said with a bit of pride, no matter what, I'm also in the company, and we are all relatives. I will take care of you. In another 2 years, I will take the initiative again. At that time, the say will be more important. It should not be a big problem to help you get a security captain if I take the initiative again. Su Weifeng was speechless. This family really is not the same. This Chen Lan is the same as his uncle's family of 3. He likes to show off his superiority. The most important thing is that he is kind-hearted. Well, at least he looks kind-hearted. However, Su Weifeng was in a state of mind. He could remain calm in the midst of gunfire and hail of bullets. Of course, he didn't need to take this little thing to heart, and said, thank you for your kindness. I'll consider it. The eldest aunt's face sank, and she looked a little disappointed, and said, what are you still considering? Do you think there are many positions in such a big company? Once this position is released, it will be gone in less than 2 days. It will be difficult for you to get in again. Don't you look down on the profession of security? Let me tell you, the security guards of such big companies are not like the security guards in the community. They are very impressive. The eldest uncle said earnestly, young people, don't be too ambitious, and don't look down on this or that. You have to think about it. You have been a soldier for so many years. What skills can you learn? Even if you are in good health, what else can you do if you don't work as a security guard? Su Weifeng's mother Shenji finally couldn't help it. She coughed lightly and said, Xiao Feng has been a soldier for so many years and has been very tired. He has just been discharged from the army, so there is no rush to take a rest. At this time, Su Weifeng's cell phone rang. His cell phone was placed on the coffee table, and Shenji immediately saw the name displayed on the phone. Su Weifeng didn't care. He picked up the phone and stood up. While answering the call, he walked into the house. Yushan, what's the matter? The most important thing is, do you know who Qiao Yushan is? She is my son's girlfriend. You asked him to work as a security guard for her girlfriend's company. This is unreasonable. Chapter 18 Mama's face. Su Weifeng was in a state of mind, but when he heard his mother's words, he almost dropped his jaw. What's going on? When he told her the day before yesterday that Qiao Yushan was his girlfriend, she refused to believe it. Why is she bragging to her uncle's family now? Then he quickly understood what his mother meant. He was obviously annoyed by his uncle's family. They always used the fact that Chen Lan was a middle-level manager of Lin Feng Company. Now they just said that the president is my daughter-in-law. Let's see how you can still feel superior. But isn't my mother afraid of being exposed? Wouldn't it be embarrassing? My mother's stubborn personality has not been restrained for many years. This made Su Weifeng feel a little funny. But as for his mother, no matter what kind of problem she has to be spoiled. Did my parents tell you anything else? Qiao Yushan went straight to the point. The most important thing is to let me be more accommodating to you, to be more tolerant of you, to let us get along well, and also, let me be bolder at the right time. Su Weifeng succinctly summed up the old couple's intentions. Qiao Yushan was silent for a few seconds and said, I know, but you don't have to worry. Su Weifeng wanted to say, you should be worried about me, not me, right? But he didn't say it. Okay, call me if you have anything, bye. After saying that, he hung up the phone very simply. Su Weifeng hurried to the living room. He had to help his mother, otherwise his mother would lose face. Weifeng, your mother said that Qiao Yushan from Lin Feng Company is your girlfriend? The aunt looked at him with a strange look. Su Weifeng glanced at his mother who was raising her neck. There was a clear sense of guilt in her eyes. He grinned and said, yes, you're exaggerating. Who is Qiao Yushan? She's the president of a company with assets of hundreds of millions and an annual salary of several million. She's not only capable, but also so beautiful. How could she be your girlfriend? Su Yuqiang widened his eyes, and was the first to express doubt. Chen Lan also frowned and said, President Qiao has been single. If she has a boyfriend, we, the middle level managers of the company, should definitely know something about it. But now there is no news at all. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, we have just gotten together, and I have not gone to the company to find her. It is normal that you don't know. The aunt rolled her eyes and said dissatisfiedly, don't talk nonsense. Who are you? What is Qiao Yushan's identity? You two are not even remotely related. Even if you have the opportunity to meet her, she will not look down on you. Tell me about yourself. What do you have? Are you handsome? Are you rich? Do you have a status or background? You have nothing. Is Qiao Yushan blind? To fall for you? The aunt's words were really merciless, and the key seemed to make sense, and she was on the point. Shenji's face suddenly turned red and he said, what do you know? This is called love at first sight. Qiao Yushan doesn't want those things, because she is rich and beautiful. All she needs is someone she likes. She liked Xiaofeng, so they got together. Xiaofeng, don't you think so? Su Weifeng looked at his mother who was winking at him, and felt at a loss whether to laugh or cry. It was obvious that his mother didn't believe it, and just wanted him to cover up the lie. He immediately nodded seriously and said, Mom is right. This is actually the case. The aunt's family looked at each other, and the four of them had an expression of disbelief in their eyes. The eldest aunt shook her head and said, okay, we believe it. Shenji, after so many years, your personality has not changed at all. You are just too obsessed with face. You can say that you want this face in front of others, but with our relationship, do you need it? Shenji secretly regretted that he should not have boasted like this, but her personality was like this. She stiffened her neck and said, forget it if you don't believe it. Okay, we believe it. You too. I never thought that you, Xiaofeng, had inherited this problem. The eldest uncle looked as if he was very disappointed in his son, and then said, let's not talk about this anymore. In half a month, our mother will celebrate her 80th birthday. Let's discuss how to prepare it. Shenji didn't want to talk about it anymore, and said, I don't have any idea. I don't know if Xiaofeng's father can make it back. You, his uncle, will make the decision. The eldest uncle said, here's what I think. An 80th birthday is also a happy event. We can invite all these immediate relatives. We won't accept any gifts. We just want everyone to come and have some fun so that our mother can be happy. The eldest aunt said, as for the expenses, you don't have to worry. Our Yuqiang has a high income, so Yuqiang will take care of it. Shenji immediately said, how can that be? This is mom's 80th birthday. Yuqiang is a grandson, and Xiaofeng is also a grandson. Let them both take care of it and share the cost. The eldest aunt frowned and said, I'm thinking that Xiaofeng doesn't have a girlfriend and a job yet, so he will have a heavy burden in the future. So I'm sharing some of the burden with you. Why do you take our kindness for granted? Shenji immediately said, I've said it before, Xiaofeng's girlfriend is Qiao Yushan. With such a big CEO as his girlfriend, how can Xiaofeng be short of that little money? You don't have to be polite. We'll split it in half. You. The aunt was really angry and said, Qiao Yushan, I think you are possessed. If Xiaofeng really has this ability, then he should bring Qiao Yushan to grandma to celebrate her birthday. His grandma will be very happy. Chenlan also said in a bad tone, then Xiaofeng is amazing. In the future, I will ask Xiaofeng to say a few good words to President Qiao in the company. Su Yuqiang even said in a sarcastic tone, yes, Xiaofeng, whether your sister-in-law can move up a step depends on you. This is nothing. Xiaofeng, you must bring Yushan when the time comes. Shenji patted his chest, looking very confident. All of a sudden, the uncle's family was a little confused. Shenji was so confident. Could it be that Qiao Yushan was really Su Weifeng's girlfriend? The corners of Su Weifeng's mouth curled up, and he almost laughed out loud, but he still forced himself to hold it back, nodded repeatedly, and said, no problem, it's a responsibility to go to grandma's birthday party. Shenji slapped his thigh and said, okay, then it's settled. Chapter 19 I will bring it back to you. My uncle's family left with all kinds of doubts, and Shenji sent them away very proudly. By the time the door was closed, Shenji had not yet calmed down from his previous emotion and said proudly, "Son, let me tell you, this is the first time in several years that I have been so arrogant in front of your uncle and others. It's so refreshing." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Yes, I can see that you are really happy, but your uncle's family doesn't have any bad intentions. They just like to show off. It's human nature." Shenji snorted and said, "Why are you always showing off? Yes, his family is richer than ours, and they are doing better than us. His son and daughter-in-law are doing well too, but they don't have to be so face-hearted, especially when they always belittle you. That makes me even more angry. How is a son bad? He just hasn't started working yet after being demobilized. After another 2 years, he will definitely be better than them. Son, you must fight for mom." Su Weifeng smiled and said, yes, I must fight for mom. I must not let mom lose face. That's more like it." Shenji waved his fist and picked up a peach. After taking 2 bites of the peach, Shenji suddenly coughed and said, "Son, I have a bad temper and only care about my own pleasure. I have caused you trouble." "What kind of trouble is this?" "It's a small matter," Su Weifeng said casually without caring. "Mom will help you pay for the birthday celebration. It's just a matter of 10,000 or 20,000 yuan. Our family doesn't care. But where can you invite Qiao Yushan? Let me think about it. When the time comes, I will say that Qiao Yushan is busy with work. She is the president of a large company. How can she have so much time? It's normal for her to be busy. She can't go when the time comes. What else can they do?" Su Weifeng's face darkened and said, "Look, mom, you really don't believe me. I don't believe you. Are you too immersed in the play?" Shenji stretched out his hand and grabbed Su Weifeng's ear. "Didn't you see Qiao Yushan calling me just now?" Su Weifeng tilted his head and looked bitter. Shenji glared and said, "Who knows whose phone number you marked as Qiao Yushan? Do you think your mother is stupid? Your mother is smart, but you are still naive to play such a petty trick with me. Mom, I really admire you. How dare you say that to your uncle and others? I was forced by them. I just wanted to make myself feel good. Let's talk about it later. Brat, I have contacted a few more for you. Come on, there are photos. Come and see which one you like. Let's contact them and meet them." Shenji loosened his hand, picked up the phone directly, and flipped through the album, saying, "Look, this one is a teacher. She is well educated and gentle. When she has children in the future, she won't have to go out for extra classes. Look at this one. This one is a white collar worker in a company. She looks energetic. This one is a businessman. Although he is a little older, he has a financial foundation. Look carefully." Su Weifeng hugged his head quickly and said, "Mom, don't worry. I really have a girlfriend now." "Really?" Shenji stared at Su Weifeng with a bad look. "Really?" Su Weifeng nodded repeatedly. Shenji crossed his arms and said, "Well, if you bring her back, I'll believe it. Okay, then I'll make an appointment with her and see when she's free. Make an appointment now. Don't fool me. Okay, call now." Su Weifeng shook his head, smiled bitterly, took the phone, and called Qiao Yushan's phone directly. Shenji glanced at the name displayed on the phone, snorted coldly, and had an expression of complete disbelief, but still came over, clearly intending to eavesdrop on the call. Su Weifeng didn't hide, and leaned his head close to his mother's ear. As soon as the call was connected, he immediately said, "Yushan, my mother said she doesn't believe anything. You, a big CEO, are my girlfriend. She insisted that I bring you back to see her. I can't bear it anymore. Do you think you have time?" "I'm a little busy recently. I can't be sure now. I'll go when I'm sure I'm free." Knowing that Qiao Yushan should have guessed that this was acting, Su Weifeng continued, "It's okay. I understand you. My mother is not unreasonable, but she is always a little anxious about my affairs. Give my regards to uncle and aunt for me. The company is really busy recently, and I really can't get away." "Okay, that's it for now, and we'll talk about this later." Su Weifeng hung up the phone after he finished speaking. Although he believed that Qiao Yushan's ability to adapt to circumstances would not be bad, who knows what words might reveal the truth. Mom is smart and definitely not that easy to fool. After hanging up the phone, Su Weifeng turned to look at his mother. Shenji just tilted her head and looked at him. The suspicion in her eyes had directly expressed her intention. Su Weifeng grinned and said, "You still don't believe it? You heard it all, right? She said that she would come over when she has time. I also heard that she is very busy recently. She can be busy all the time, busy until the end of time, busy until the sea dries up and the rocks crumble." Shenji sneered. "This excuse is really too old-fashioned and too insincere, especially for the woman you found. Can't you just say an identity? Knowing that I like Qiao Yushan, you have to let someone pretend to be her. Are you deliberately trying to coax your mother, or do you want to anger your mother?" Su Weifeng was very upset and said, "That's her. Tell me, how can you believe that the girlfriend I found is Qiao Yushan? Let me believe it. Unless you bring her back, I will believe it when I see the real person. Isn't it just bringing her back? I will definitely bring her back within a week. Are you sure?" Shenji's expression eased. Su Weifeng vowed, "Absolutely. If I don't bring back a daughter-in-law that satisfies you within a week, then I will let you go on blind dates. I will marry the one you like." "That's what you said, kid. Don't think you can just bring any woman back as a shield. I don't ask for Qiao Yushan, but at least she has to be pleasing to me." "Absolutely no problem." Su Weifeng didn't emphasize that it was Qiao Yushan. Who knows if Qiao Yushan is really willing to come? Even if she agrees to come, what if she has a lot of things to do and doesn't have time to come? He and Qiao Yushan are in exchange, but it is impossible to force Qiao Yushan to come. If there is an accident, then find someone to take the blame. It should not be too difficult to find a woman to impersonate, as long as you spend some money. Chapter 20 I'm a loser. Finally, he had coaxed his mother, and didn't have to go on blind dates for the time being. Su Weifeng breathed a sigh of relief and quickly slipped back to the bedroom. It has been more than a month since he was demobilized. At first, he felt very comfortable doing nothing all day, but after so many days, it seemed a bit boring. In addition, there were some rumors among his parents, relatives, and friends. His mother didn't care and didn't get angry when he asked him to take a break, but as a son, he always had to consider his parents' face. Now he had to find a similar job to do so that he could make his parents look good, especially his mother Shenji, who was a person who cared about face. She had to stand up straight in front of relatives. With the level of his demobilization, it would definitely be no problem for him to go directly to the government department, but Su Weifeng didn't like this kind of job because it had too many restrictions. Then he could go to a company, but it seemed difficult to find a suitable job with his resume as a soldier. As Chen Lan said, being a security guard would be more suitable. Actually, Su Weifeng would not feel low about being a security guard. It was just a job, and he was not short of money. You know, in addition to being the captain of Long Zio, he also had a very special identity, the leader of the Feng'an mercenary group. The mercenary group sounds like a team in the game, but in fact, there are indeed many mercenary groups in this world. Most of the mercenaries are doing this extremely dangerous job for money, but some people join the mercenary group for other reasons, just like Su Weifeng. He joined the mercenary group because of some special reasons, in order to be able to perform some tasks more conveniently at certain times. The Feng'an mercenary group is also well known in the entire mercenary world. There is a ranking in the mercenary world, and the Feng'an mercenary group ranks third. And on the personal strategy list of the mercenary world, Su Weifeng, the leader, can definitely be ranked in the top 5, but in the mercenary world, except for the core members of the Feng'an mercenary group, no one knows his true face. The missions that the mercenary group accepts are all very dangerous, so the rewards are also very high. Over the years, the income that Su Weifeng has earned from the mercenary group is absolutely astronomical, and even he himself does not know how much it is. Su Weifeng did not tell his parents about the fact that he had so much money. It was not that he did not want to give it to his parents, but that he could not explain to his parents that he had so much money, and it would be easy for them to know that he had experienced so many dangers over the years. Since these things have passed, why should Su Weifeng let them be sad and upset? After experiencing so many life and death moments, Su Weifeng actually does not care much about fame and fortune, so he feels that his parents' current plane and real life is actually happier. More money will easily break their happy life. So what Su Weifeng wants to do now is not to make money at all, but to find something to do, not so boring, and to win some face for his parents. After thinking about it, it seems that it is more practical to start his own business. He will open a company and spend 18 million yuan. Then, no matter whether he makes money or not, he will be impressive and have face. Thinking of this idea, Su Weifeng burst out laughing, feeling like a prodigal son. If he wanted to start a business, Su Weifeng only needed to make a phone call, and someone would list several feasible plans for him. But Su Weifeng didn't want to make money now, but wanted to find something to do, so it would be more interesting to do everything by himself. The next day, when Su Weifeng was about to go out, his cell phone rang, and the number was an unfamiliar one. "Who is it?" Su Weifeng answered. "Guess who I am?" A girl's voice came from the phone. "Zhuangsun, do you still need to guess?" Su Weifeng answered with a smile. Talking to this girl made Su Weifeng feel happy unconsciously. "No way, brother-in-law, do you have too few female friends?" "It's not that I have few, but Zhuangsun's voice is so nice and recognizable. I can recognize it just by looking at your words." Brother-in-law, you are really good at talking. No wonder a woman like my sister can fall in love with you. If your sister heard you saying this, you would definitely be in trouble. Haha. You won't tell anyone anyway, right brother-in-law? Of course you called me so early. You don't just want to chat with me, do you? Brother-in-law, do you have time today? I want you to go somewhere with me. What place? Just tell me if you have time. I do have time. That's fine. I'll wait for you at Century Plaza at 9:30. At 9:20, Su Weifeng arrived at Century Plaza and sent a location message to Lin Zhuangsun. Soon, Su Weifeng saw Lin Zhuangsun, who was skating towards him on a skateboard, still wearing a white t-shirt, denim shorts, and a pair of warrior shoes. When he arrived in front of Su Weifeng, he spun around and stopped steadily in front of Su Weifeng, taking out a lollipop from her mouth. Lin Zhuangsun said with a smile, "Brother-in-law, you are still very punctual." Su Weifeng was amazed by Lin Zhuangsun. He felt a strong youthful atmosphere from Lin Zhuangsun and said, "That's right, it's so rude to be late for a date with a beautiful woman." Lin Zhuangsun chuckled and said, "Since you speak so nicely, I'll give you a chance to treat me today." "No problem, it's my honor." After making two jokes, Su Weifeng asked, "What are we going to do?" Lin Zhuangsun leaned close to Su Weifeng and whispered, "Brother-in-law, do you know how to rock climb?" Rock climbing? It's the kind of artificial cliff where you see who can climb the shortest time. Oh my, it seems you haven't played it before. Lin Zhuangsun immediately looked bitter. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "I haven't tried it before, but I feel it shouldn't be difficult." "From your expression, you don't want me to compete with others in rock climbing, do you?" Lin Zhuangsun exclaimed in surprise. "How did you know?" "Your expression betrayed you, but you are so bold. You don't even know if I can do it, and you want me to compete with others?" Lin Zhuangsun showed embarrassment on his face and said, "Actually, I had no choice. I originally found a master, but he suddenly had diarrhea today and couldn't come, and the competition could not be cancelled. I thought about it, and thought that your kung fu is very powerful, maybe this thing can also work, so I bit the bullet, and asked you to help me with this." Chapter 21. Don't worry, I'm here. Then I'll try. Su Weifeng agreed very readily. "Let's try. Brother-in-law, the stakes are high this time. If I lose, I'll be in big trouble. And there's a stake. What did you bet on?" Su Weifeng frowned slightly. When a girl makes a bet with others, the things involved are often very sensitive. He doesn't like girls to bet with such things. "Why do you look like that? You don't think I'm betting with my body, feelings, or first kiss, right?" Lin Zhuangsun was puzzled at first, then pointed at Su Weifeng and shouted angrily, "Oh, that's not the case. If it's just a little money, it doesn't matter." Su Weifeng's expression eased. Lin Zhuangsun snorted, raised his chin, and said proudly, "I despise you. You are so disrespectful to me without asking the situation clearly. In this respect, you are quite similar to my sister." Su Weifeng said apologetically, "Okay, I thought too much. What are you betting on?" "Whoever loses will crawl on the ground 3 times, and learn to bark like a dog 3 times." So humiliating? Su Weifeng frowned. Lin Zhuangxuan said angrily, yes, that woman is always looking for trouble and always looking for trouble with me. I usually ignore her, but this time it was too much. I was so angry that I agreed on impulse. Brother-in-law, you must help me win, otherwise I will lose face and can't play here anymore. Okay, then I'll try my best. Don't try your best, you must win. Lin Zhuangxuan grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and shook it hard, with pleading eyes. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, okay, then I'll help you win. You little girls are really fooling around. Lin Zhuangxuan tilted his head and stared at Su Weifeng, saying, brother-in-law, from what you said, you are very confident? Su Weifeng smiled and said, it shouldn't be a big problem. Okay, then it depends on you. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly patted Su Weifeng hard, and he was already full of confidence at this time. Lin Zhuangxuan quickly took Su Weifeng to a fitness club. Brother-in-law, when we are here, I will call you by your name, otherwise I will feel weird. Su Weifeng didn't mind. It was just a title. Besides, this brother-in-law himself was also a fake. This club is mostly some very fashionable fitness and entertainment projects. Lin Zhuangxuan took Su Weifeng inside and introduced them. This is the place for roller skating, this is the place for skateboarding, and this is the place for cool running. This is my favorite. It's like a person flying over the eaves and walls. It's really cool. Su Weifeng looked at the people over there running and jumping quickly between various obstacles, and couldn't help shaking his head. What's wrong? Are they not good at it? Lin Zhuangxuan asked in a low voice in Su Weifeng's ear. You have a lot of confidence in me. Su Weifeng turned his head and replied. The two faces were too close, and he could feel the hot air exhaled from Lin Zhuangxuan's mouth, with a faint fragrance. Lin Zhuangxuan clenched his fists and said firmly, of course. Anyway, I feel that you must be a master in this kind of sports that relies on physical skills. The last time Su Weifeng rescued her from the mouth of a bear, Lin Zhuangxuan's memory was too deep. She saw the fierce and tall black bear with her own eyes. No matter how fierce it could not touch Su Weifeng at all. In his heart, Su Weifeng's strength was simply indescribable. Hey, Lin Zhuangxuan, you won't tell me that this uncle is the expert you found? Soon Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan came to the rock climbing place. A girl with red hair and heavy makeup taunted Lin Zhuangxuan in a shady way. Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin and said proudly, yes, this is the expert I invited. He. The girl suddenly laughed, then pointed at Su Weifeng and laughed loudly. Everyone come and see. Lin Zhuangxuan actually invited an uncle. This is too much. Uncle, can you do it with your body? The uncle looks quite strong, but our sport is not just about having some muscles. Several people around the girl immediately laughed and followed the ridicule. In fact, most of the young people playing here are in their 20s. In this place of rock climbing, the age is a bit older, and there are many people in their 20s, otherwise Lin Zhuangxuan would not come here to play. Although Su Weifeng is only 25 years old, his skin looks a little rough and dark due to the exposure to wind, rain and sun over the years. He looks like he is only 2 or 3 years older. Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, Sun Yanlin, shut up. I'm here to compete with you, not to listen to you talking nonsense. The heavily made up girl was Sun Yanlin. She pouted her lips with disdain and said, Lin Zhuangxuan, do you want to lose to me and learn to bark like a dog as soon as possible? Lin Zhuangxuan also looked disdainful and said, then I want to see who will learn to bark like a dog last. Okay, let's start. Dear Rocket, it's your turn. Sun Yanlin's voice suddenly rose a few degrees. Following Sun Yanlin's call, a man wearing a black vest and tight shorts, with strong muscles all over his body, strode out. Rocket. Oh my god, it's really Rocket. Sun Yanlin actually invited Rocket. It's so exciting. We can actually see Rocket's performance. With the appearance of this man, the scene suddenly became excited. Lin Zhuangxuan's face suddenly became ugly. Su Weifeng asked in a low voice, is this Rocket very powerful? Lin Zhuangxuan's mouth twitched, and he also whispered, powerful? More than powerful, he is the provincial champion of free climbing in the past 2 years. Even in the national competition, he has won the top 5. Do you think he is powerful? Su Weifeng nodded and said, then it seems that his level must be extraordinary. This is terrible. I'm sure to lose. Lin Zhuangxuan's face became more bitter, and she was about to cry. Su Weifeng patted her shoulder gently, leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Isn't it just a provincial champion? Let's see how I can beat him." "Ah. Can you really win?" Lin Zhuangxuan screamed out. Everyone around suddenly focused their attention on Lin Zhuangxuan and Su Weifeng. The rockets have already appeared, and Lin Zhuangxuan still said they can win. Is this guy really that strong? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 20 to Taunting. Expert? Is this an expert? Everyone's eyes were fixed on Su Weifeng, and they were thinking of the top rock climbers in the country, but no expert could match Su Weifeng. Lin Zhuangxuan also looked at Su Weifeng, put his mouth close to Su Weifeng's ear, and whispered, "He is the provincial champion. Can you really do it?" Su Weifeng nodded and said calmly, "It should be no problem." Seeing Su Weifeng so relaxed, Lin Zhuangxuan's doubts were gone at once, and he immediately raised his head and said, "Sun Yanlin, even if you find Rocket, you will definitely lose." "You said Rocket will lose?" Sun Yanlin looked at Lin Zhuangxuan, as if he was a fool. Others immediately started to make noise. "Are you crazy? Do you know what level Rocket is? Do you really think the provincial champion is a piece of cake? I have seen Rocket's game, and his speed is so fast that it is hard to describe. With our people here, he can make 3 seconds. Rocket waved his hand, and everyone immediately quieted down. In everyone's heart, Rocket is a star. "You want to compete with me? Haven't you asked me what to call you?" Rocket came straight to Su Weifeng. His tone was quite arrogant. Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, "Su Weifeng." Rocket frowned and said, "I haven't heard of your name before. What competitions have you participated in before?" "I haven't participated in any competitions." Su Weifeng's words immediately caused a lot of noise. Oh my god, he hasn't even participated in a competition, but he actually said that he can beat Rocket. How arrogant is this guy? Haha, I think he is not arrogant at all, but a frog in the well. He doesn't know the height of the world at all. Not bad, not bad. This is the first time I have seen such a shameless person in my life. Rocket waved his hand to stop everyone's noise again, with a faint smile on his face, saying, "You can't say that. There are masters among the people. This brother may be a master hidden among the people." The slightly upturned corners of his mouth clearly showed a kind of mockery. Sun Yanlin came over and snuggled directly into Huo Jian's arms, saying in a coquettish voice, "Dear, since he is so ignorant, you should teach him a good lesson." Huo Jian laughed and said, "Okay, let's compete. Just treat it as training." Sun Yanlin looked at Lin Zhuangxuan with a provocative look again and said, "Lin Zhuangxuan, let's compete. Don't forget our bet. Don't deny it if you lose." Lin Zhuangxuan glanced at Su Weifeng, then puffed out his chest and said, "I, Lin Zhuangxuan, always keep my word. Let's compete. Who is afraid of who?" Sun Yanlin chuckled again and said, "Come on. Haha, let's all see what kind of master this person Lin Zhuangxuan invited is." Su Weifeng said at this time, "Wait a minute, I have never played this before. Can I try it first?" Huo Jian said directly, "Of course. Wait, what did you say? You have never played this before?" "Yes, it's my first time." Su Weifeng replied with a smile. Quiet. Everyone suddenly became quiet, their eyes almost popped out, and then they all burst into laughter. "Oh my god. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. I've never played before, and you come to compete now. Even if I play, I will definitely win. You are competing with Rocket. You are simply insulting Rocket. You deserve a beating. Yes. Kick this guy out, and find someone who has never played before to compete with. If this is not an insult, what else can it be?" Rocket's face suddenly darkened, and he said, "Are you sure you are not kidding?" Su Weifeng shrugged his shoulders and said lightly, "I have never played before, but this seems to be very simple. If you don't want me to try my hand, let's compete now. You." Rocket's face became even uglier, and he was about to explode. Lin Zhuangxuan was also very upset at this time. He had no confidence in Su Weifeng at this time. This time, Su Weifeng was really going to let him die. Do you really want to compete with me? Rocket stared at Su Weifeng. Not bad. Otherwise why would I come here? Rocket sneered and said, but I won't compete with a rookie because you are not worthy. Su Weifeng said, are you afraid of losing? You can save face if you lose to a master, but if you lose to me, won't you feel particularly embarrassed? Will I lose? Haha, will I lose to you? Rocket was suddenly amused by Su Weifeng. You will definitely lose. Su Weifeng nodded with indescribable seriousness and affirmation. Rocket's forehead veins popped up, and he gritted his teeth and said, you are really confident. Okay, then I will give you a chance. If you want me to compete with you, that's fine. Let's raise the stakes. You say. Su Weifeng said nonchalantly. Let's bet $100,000. Do you dare? Lin Zhuangxuan's face turned pale with fright. He quickly grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and said hastily, no, it's up to you, whether you want to compete or not. Who's betting with you? Rocket sneered and said, if you don't want to gamble, that's simple. If you lose, you have to compensate me for one night. Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes were about to spit fire. He gritted his teeth and said hatefully, you're shameless. Rocket laughed and said, didn't this guy say he would definitely win? Since he is sure to win, why should you be afraid? If you don't dare to bet, it means he is just bragging. I would lose face by competing with such an unknown person. Am I asking too much? Yes, it's not excessive. Rocket is absolutely right. Why should I compete with a rookie like you? Choose one of the two bets. Why don't you dare to choose? The onlookers started to make a fuss at this time, and they were obviously on Sun Yanlin's side. Sun Yanlin said sarcastically, Lin Zhuangxuan, what's the matter? Don't you dare to agree. We are all here to have fun. I just can't stand your pretending to be a fool. You have the guts to come out to play, but you don't dare to play. If you don't have the courage, don't show up here in the future. Now crawl here 3 times and learn to bark like a dog 3 times. I'm a magnanimous person and I'm too lazy to bother with you. Lin Zhuangxuan was ridiculed by everyone. His face turned pale and blue. He was about to cry. Su Weifeng's face became colder and colder. He stretched out his arm to hug Lin Zhuangxuan's shoulders and then slowly said, since you insist on playing, then I will play with you. The stakes are too small. Why don't we bet bigger? Chapter 23 Let's play big. You want to bet bigger? Rocket stared at Su Weifeng as if he was a monster, then grinned and said, how much do you want to bet? 100,000 is too little. 1 million. Su Weifeng said lightly. 1 million. Everyone took a breath of cold air. 100,000 for most people here. That is already a huge sum of money. Those who come here to play don't have their own careers unless they are from a very wealthy family. 1 million. This is simply an astronomical figure. Although Rocket is a provincial champion, he can also get some prize money when participating in competitions. But the prize money is not much, plus he usually spends money outside. How come he have so much? Rocket's mouth twitched and said, are you serious? Of course I'm serious. Are you scared? Su Weifeng looked at him calmly. Would I be afraid? Qiao Yushan sneered and said, well, let's bet 1 million. But what if you lose and don't admit it? Su Weifeng took his phone and opened WeChat directly, opened the change directly, and pushed it forward, saying, it's only 1 million. If you lose, I will transfer the money directly. Qiao Yushan and Sun Yanlin looked at the amount displayed on the change, carefully looked at the digits before the decimal point, and their eyes almost popped out. There were 7 digits, and the first digit was still 5, which meant that the amount of Su Weifeng's change reached more than 5 million. Lin Zhuangxuan naturally saw it, and was also stunned at this time. More than 5 million, and it was still in the WeChat change. How rich must he be to do such a thing? She suddenly realized that she didn't know Su Weifeng, her brother-in-law, at all, and she didn't know whether Qiao Yushan knew it. Qiao Yushan and Sun Yanlin both swallowed hard, and then looked at each other, with fanatical looks in their eyes. This is definitely a local tyrant, or a fat sheep. If they kill this fat sheep, they will get rich. Okay, I bet with you. Rocket's eyes were bloodshot, and he nodded heavily with gritted teeth. Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, well, then I'll try my hand first. As soon as Su Weifeng took a step, everyone dispersed immediately. Such a generous local tyrant. Those young people who were just showing off, no one dared to despise them anymore. Su Weifeng came to the rock wall, grabbed the protrusions on it with both hands, and jumped up with his arms exerting force. His feet also stepped on the protrusions more than 1 meter high. Then he tried to climb up twice, and then jumped down, saying, "It's okay." Su Weifeng's movements looked simple and neat, but for these young people who always play these things, it was definitely an amateur. Let's not talk about whether the movements were standardized or not. The most important thing is that you should climb from bottom to top once. You have to know where to get the leverage, which point to grab for the next step, and which point to step on. Rocket's eyes also showed joy at this time. He was actually worried that Su Weifeng was a hidden master, but now he was completely sure that Su Weifeng was a rookie. He was sure that he would win this game. When he thought that he would get 1 million soon, his heart was beating wildly, and his face was swollen and red. He said, "Let's start now. Come here. Why are you being silly? Hurry up and give us equipment." Obviously, they were a little impatient. Lin Zhuangxuan saw that both of them had put on the safety ropes and suddenly came to his senses and hurriedly shouted, "Wait. What? Do you regret it? You can't afford to play anymore?" Sun Yanlin was shocked and quickly made sarcastic remarks, fearing that Lin Zhuangxuan would regret it. Lin Zhuangxuan gritted his teeth and said, "My friend proved that he has 1 million. What about you? What if you lose?" Sun Yanlin curled her lips and said, "We will lose. Are you kidding? If you regret it, just say it." Lin Zhuangxuan stared and said, "Whether we win or lose, we have proved that we can afford the bet. Why don't you prove it?" Lin Zhuangxuan's request was normal, but Sun Yanlin and Qiao Yushan both looked embarrassed at this time. Where can they get 1 million? Not to mention 1 million, even if it is 100,000, they can't take it out. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "That's easy. How much money can you raise now?" "That's how much you can raise." This. Sun Yanlin and Qiao Yushan looked at each other, then took out their phones to check, but they could only raise more than 80,000 yuan in total. After hesitating for a while, Sun Yanlin said, "Who has money left? How much do you raise? I'll give you that much if you win." When everyone heard this, they all came over excitedly. "You raised a few thousand, and I raised tens of thousands." This was clearly a sure win game. How could we refuse the money that was delivered to our door? All of it was transferred to Sun Yanlin's account. Then they raised more than 210,000 yuan in total. Huh, with just this little, you want to bet 1 million with us? Lin Zhuangxuan sneered disdainfully. "I think we should not bet with them. It's really meaningless." While speaking, she also secretly winked at Su Weifeng. Now there is an excuse to cancel the bet, so that she can save face and not take any risks. In fact, the most important thing is that she doesn't believe Su Weifeng will win. That's Rocket, the provincial champion. How could Sun Yanlin and others miss such a good opportunity? Sun Yanlin snorted and said, "We will write you an IOU. Although we can't take it out now because we lost, we will pay you back in the future." Lin Zhuangxuan was about to refuse, but Su Weifeng said, "Okay, let's do it." "You." Lin Zhuangxuan was about to cry, but looking at Su Weifeng's calm appearance, she regained some confidence. "Come on, I have something else to do. I don't have so much time to play with you. Let's finish the competition as soon as possible." Su Weifeng urged again at this time. Sun Yanlin was afraid that there would be another accident, so she hurriedly said, "Okay, get ready." Rocket clung to the cliff with both hands, his heart pounding wildly. He had participated in so many competitions, but he had never been so nervous. "He's just a novice. I will definitely win. Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. 1 million. 1 million. Rocket kept cheering himself up in his heart, but 1 million was so exciting that his palms were sweating, and he couldn't be as calm and composed as usual. Su Weifeng stood there very relaxed and didn't even put his hands on the bulge of the cliff. This was not the attitude of a game. Everyone held their breath at this time. It was a rock climbing competition with 1 million per round, and they all participated in the bet. The tension made the air here suffocate. Chapter 24 Kiss. Begin. Sun Yanlin shouted. Rocket used his arms to push himself up, and then he quickly stepped on the protrusions with his feet. Then he used his hands and feet to push himself up. Rocket climbed the cliff for several hours every day. Rock climbing seemed easier to him than walking on flat ground. With the stimulation of 1 million, he felt that his whole body was full of explosive power. Today's speed was obviously a few points faster than usual. In this state, he could get a good ranking, even if he participated in the national competition. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise in his ears, and then it became quiet again. Rocket ignored it, and focused on his actions. Now no sound could disturb him to win the game. Rocket was concentrating, while others opened their mouths wide and their eyes were about to pop out. They were not excited, because of Rocket's extraordinary performance, but because of Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng stretched out his hands, to grab the protrusion on the cliff. He didn't see how hard he used. He jumped up more than 2 meters high. Then he kicked the protruding stone, and jumped up more than 2 meters high again. If Rocket is a gecko attached to the cliff, swimming there quickly, then Su Weifeng is a real rocket that takes off. He didn't stop at all. When Rocket was only halfway up, he had already jumped directly to the highest point, tapped the finish line lightly, and then slid down lightly. 6 seconds. It will definitely not exceed 6 seconds. Rocket was counting silently in his mind. He knew very well the time he took this time. This was definitely faster than his fastest record by nearly 1 second. This was already a major breakthrough. Even if it was faster than the national champion, it was almost the same. Rocket slapped the finish line hard, kicked his feet, and slid down holding the safety rope in his hand, looking forward to everyone's cheers, thinking that his 1 million was about to be in his hands. He turned around, and saw Su Weifeng sliding down below him. Haha, you failed halfway. Rocket laughed excitedly. 1 million. Haha. 1 million. After laughing twice, Rocket felt something was wrong. Why didn't anyone respond? Shouldn't everyone laugh with him at this time? Rocket quickly landed on the ground, and turned to look at everyone. He found that everyone's faces were extremely ugly. He couldn't help but say angrily, "What are you looking at? I won, and you also won money. Why do you look like your parents have died?" Sun Yanlin's mouth twitched, and she couldn't speak. No one else spoke either. Haha. We won. We won. Finally, someone shouted excitedly. Rocket finally breathed a sigh of relief. This depressing atmosphere was really too uncomfortable for him. Finally, someone broke the deadlock. But when he saw that person, he was stunned. That person was not one of them at all, but Lin Zhuangsun. We won. You're so awesome. Lin Zhuangsun rushed to Su Weifeng, hugged Su Weifeng's waist, and then leaned forward and kissed Su Weifeng heavily on the face, then hugged Su Weifeng, jumping and laughing. This was really unexpected and surprising to her. Even if she felt that Su Weifeng would win, she felt that the chance was not high. She never thought that Su Weifeng would not only win, but also win so easily. Lin Zhuangsun's reaction surprised Su Weifeng. Being hugged by such a beautiful woman and kissed by her was really an indescribable enjoyment. It seemed that he really won a lot in this game. I lost? Rocket asked stutteringly at this time. Lin Zhuangsun finally stopped, turned to look at him, raised his chin proudly, and said, "Yes, you lost. How is this possible?" "Impossible." Rocket shouted at the top of his lungs. Lin Zhuangsun glared and said, "What? You don't want to admit your loss? Impossible. I absolutely cannot lose. It's less than 6 seconds. How could I lose? You lied to me." Rocket roared, then looked at the others and said angrily, "Tell me, did I win?" No one replied to him, and everyone looked no better than him. Lin Zhuangsun took Su Weifeng's arm and came to Sun Yanlin arrogantly, saying, "Now you have lost. Fulfill the bet." Sun Yanlin's face became even uglier. She gritted her teeth and suddenly shouted, "So what if I lost? Then fulfill the bet." Lin Zhuangsun was even more imposing. Sun Yanlin blushed and shouted, "You wishful thinking. Get out of here. You are so naive. Do you think I will give you money if you lose? You are dreaming." Yes, this money cannot be given. It's just a game. Who among us said we bet with you? We didn't say anything. Don't you think so? Yes, we didn't say anything about betting. Everyone started to make a fuss, and each of them wanted to deny their debt. You, a bunch of scoundrels. Lin Zhuangsun's face turned red with anger. Sun Yanlin snorted at this time and said, "Lin Zhuangsun, who do you think you are? We took you to play, and you just had fun secretly. Now you still want to win my money. I tell you, don't play here in the future, otherwise we will kick you out. Everyone gathered together and surrounded Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan in the middle, as if they were going to fight if they disagreed. Rocket finally came to his senses at this time. This failure was a great humiliation for him. His heart was bleeding. He was so angry that he stared at Su Weifeng with a cold face and gritted his teeth and said, "Boy, you cheated. This is not rock climbing at all. Apologize now, otherwise I will be rude to you. Apologize. Apologize." Everyone immediately roared angrily. Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes widened. These were the friends who usually played well with everyone, but now they were like ferocious beasts. It was simply beyond her understanding of human nature. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes at this time and said lightly, "Are you sure?" Rocket snorted and said, "What? You are still not convinced? I tell you, not only do you have to apologize, but you have to compensate us. I don't want more from you. Just give us 100,000. Otherwise, you can't leave here today. Yes, pay money." Everyone was actually excited at this time, as if they had found legitimate reason. Lin Zhuangxuan was so angry that her whole body trembled. She pointed at these people, but she couldn't say anything. Su Weifeng held her little hand, suddenly chuckled, and said, "Zhuangxuan, you have no objection if I beat them up, right?" "No." Lin Zhuangxuan spit out these two words without thinking. Chapter 25 Lessons. As soon as Lin Zhuangxuan finished speaking, Su Weifeng rushed into the crowd. Ah! Ouch! The screams were heard in an instant. In less than a minute, all the men had already fallen to the ground. Only Huo Jian, Sun Yanlin and a few girls were still standing there. They were all frozen in place, their legs shaking, and their faces pale. Huo Jian was so scared that he stepped back and stammered, What are you going to do? What do you want?" Su Weifeng stepped forward and slapped Huo Jian, who turned around twice and shook his body. "Do you still want Zhuangxuan to accompany you?" While speaking, Su Weifeng slapped him twice more. "I don't want to." Rocket covered his face with his hands, knelt down with a thud, and burst into tears. "Brother, I'm talking nonsense. Even if I have 8 more courage, I dare not have the idea of hitting your woman. Humph, what I despise most is people like you who have little ability, but want to act arrogantly." With a kick, Su Weifeng kicked Rocket, and made him fall over twice. Brother, stop hitting me. I will pay you. Isn't it okay for me to pay you? When you want to take advantage of others, you'd better consider whether you can afford the price. Don't hit me. I'll give. Sun Yanlin met Su Weifeng's gaze, as if she was stared at by a ferocious beast, and she almost peed herself. "I have seen fierce men, but I have never seen such a fierce one." There were more than 10 men, and they were all muscular men who exercised all day. At this time, they didn't even have the room to fight back, but Su Weifeng knocked them all down. "This guy is simply not a human. HMPH. Su Weifeng snorted at Sun Yanlin. Sun Yanlin's legs softened, and she sat down on the ground. Then, a foul smell instantly came out. Su Weifeng's face turned black. He quickly hugged Lin Zhuangxuan, and hid far away, saying, "Let's go." "Yeah." Lin Zhuangxuan agreed obediently. Her voice was like a kitten. The two walked silently all the way to the outdoors. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly pushed Su Weifeng and shouted, "It's bad. This time it's a big loss." "What do you mean by a big loss?" Su Weifeng scared Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan gritted her teeth and said, "We won't confiscate the bets. 1 million. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "You really plan to take it? Gambling is not a good habit. You won't feel at ease spending the money you win. Besides, they are not rich people. If we really take their money, they will probably cry to death. It's just a matter of scaring them and teaching them a lesson." Well, okay, that's true. If they really give it to me, I can't take it. Lin Zhuangxuan said here, and then smiled bitterly, and said, "This is the first time I've been so close to 1 million. Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Money is something. It's okay as long as it's enough to spend. How much is too much?" Hey, you're talking without any pain in your waist. You are a rich man. You have more than 5 million in your WeChat wallet. Lin Zhuangxuan felt a little toothache when she thought about the string of numbers on Su Weifeng's mobile phone. Su Weifeng laughed and said, "You really believe it? I just took a screenshot on purpose to fool them. Who would put so much money in the change for no reason? That's not the way to pretend." Lin Zhuangxuan widened his eyes and said, "No way. What's there to not know? Do you want me to teach you how to do it? I guarantee that no one will be able to tell next time. It's okay to fool people. PFFT, forget it. I'm not a rich man. It would be embarrassing if I pretended and then people found out. Oh, brother-in-law, you're so mean. I thought I met a super rich man, and you shattered my dream again." The two took a few steps forward, and Lin Zhuangxuan said with a beaming eyebrow, "This time I really feel relieved. Those guys just bullied me, an outsider. Now that I'm relieved, I won't play with them anymore. When it comes to playing this kind of thing, just play if you have fun, and forget it if you don't. Yeah, I won't play with them anymore. By the way, brother-in-law, how can you be so awesome? You went up in a flash. You're more agile than a monkey." Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, "You know, I'm a special forces soldier. This kind of climbing is a skill to save lives. In order to survive on the battlefield, we often have to climb cliffs that are more dangerous than this. There are no protective measures, which is not comparable to this kind of exercise. Your previous experience must be very exciting." "Exciting?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Maybe. That kind of excitement is not something that ordinary people can experience. It is the excitement of struggling on the verge of death every day. Not everyone can experience it." Lin Zhuangxuan tilted his head and looked at Su Weifeng's face, saying, "You are a man with a story. Can you tell me about your past?" "Oh, what stories do I have? There's nothing to say about my military experience. Just tell me, I'm really curious." Lin Zhuangxuan grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and shook it gently twice. "Haha, let's talk about it when we have a chance." Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said dissatisfiedly, "You are so stingy. Just tell my sister, I'll take a call first. What's the important matter?" Okay, I'll be there right away. I should be there in half an hour." After hanging up the phone, Lin Zhuangxuan said to Su Weifeng, "I have something to go back to the company, so I can't play with you. You still have a job. It's not the weekend. You are out playing. I thought you didn't have a job." Su Weifeng teased. "You look down on me. Don't I have to support myself?" Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng. "I still have my own company." "Great. You really make me look at you in a new light." Su Weifeng gave a thumbs up, really a little surprised. "That's right. Otherwise you would have looked down on me." Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin proudly, then blinked and said, "Do you want to come to my place to play? I have several beautiful women there." Su Weifeng said happily, "Okay, I don't have anything to do anyway. I despise you, you big pervert." Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng viciously. The two of them sat in a taxi, and Su Weifeng asked, "What does your company do? Do you know short videos like TikTok and Slow Hand?" "I know. I watched them recently when I had nothing to do. At first, they were quite interesting, but after watching them too much, they were the same old things over and over again. I don't like watching them that much, but there are quite a lot of beauties." "Ah, you big pervert, you only know how to look at beauties." Lin Zhuangxuan pinched Su Weifeng's arm. Su Weifeng couldn't help but laugh and said, "Everyone has a love for beauty." Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng with disdain and said, "I just saw that the content of these short videos lacks novelty, so I came up with this idea. A friend of mine and I set up a team to specialize in making some short videos. These short videos are not the kind of singing and dancing, but real stories. The kind of continuous stories can be regarded as fulfilling my dream of being a director." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.